Good evening, everyone. This is Brock Beard from lastcar.info coming at you after the conclusion of the Goodyear 400 at the Darlington Raceway and a good old-fashioned knockdown, drag-out heavyweight brawl amongst several top contenders, including the long-dormant Ford Dark Horse, the Mustang that has been winless through this year, winless even in the Xfinity and the Truck Series for their permutations of that brand there, but finally breaking through, and with no less than Brad Keselowski pulling off his first win in 110 starts, dating back to 2021, had been winless in the entire next-gen era, even as his teammate Chris Buescher has been rattling off wins here since this last year, pulling off the wins in the 17 car, including the 1-2 finish they had at Daytona last August. Buescher, again, very close to the photo finish win in Kansas last week when we were trackside up there, and very close to pulling off this win as well against a utterly dominant Tyler Reddick in this race here. But regardless, we had a dramatic finish, shades of 2003 for sure, between the Ricky Craven, Kurt Busch battle and Dave Blaney in third, almost pulling off that victory in a very similar manner, had things played out just a little bit different in that one. But regardless, a fantastic cap-off to what was a pretty surprising throwback weekend, throwback in every sense, both in the quality of racing at the Darlington Raceway and a lot of the throwback paint schemes and tributes that we saw along the way. A lot of the veteran drivers that were able to see this race live, including Terry Labonte, being in the booth there. Unfortunately, his car did not have the best finish out there, despite a very strong run that Kyle Larson himself put together. We'll talk about all that here. We'll talk about the Xfinity and Truck Series coverage here as well. My goodness, just an absolute classic here. Again, this season, again, maybe not every single race has been, the most amazing thing ever, but we have, we're about a third of the way through this season here already, and we have had more good ones than bad. I could definitely tell you that. And even the ones that weren't probably the most competitive still had some interesting storylines along the way here too. But this just being the latest of them there. So congratulations to Brad Keselowski. It is a little bit surreal after the discussion just last week there and finding out he was a huge fan of this channel here. I'm sure he's not watching now. He's going to be celebrating with the team and everything. But if you do happen to come across this video, Brad, congratulations again, and look forward to seeing you again at Sears Point next month. Fantastic run there. I mean, there's been so many close calls for the 6 team there, especially on the super speedways. You think back to, well, really it was him and Reddick at the very end of that Talladega race just a few weeks ago, and Reddick getting his sticker on the roof rail of his car to punch his ticket into the playoffs there, and Keselowski having to settle for a runner-up finish there in the results of that one, and been very close to winning his first Daytona 500 as well, even in this next-gen era, and being in the mix there, and all the effort that's gone into rebuilding this program. Again, we've really seen it, especially out of Buescher, and how rejuvenated he's been these last few years. Again, I said that he seemed like to be possessed by somebody else, in the Kansas race last week with some of the wild moves he was making all the way to the finish there, and very much so in this race too. And then we saw even David Reagan have a good run in the Stage 60 entry at Daytona. He did end up a bit further back in the order after, the wrecks and everything had sorted themselves out. But a tremendous turnaround there for this organization. I mean, the Roush team, especially the number 6 team, had been struggling for so many years, trying to get any kind of stability with both newcomers and veterans as well, whether it was years with Matt Kenseth or Trevor Bayne or anything else. Seeing that number pull off a win at Darlington, no less, does bring back shades of Mark Martin's win here back in 1993 when he had a rain-shortened win in the Southern 500 that year. Again, just a tremendous story there. I mean, an undoubtedly popular victory. I mean, back to 2021 at Talladega, if memory serves, the last time that we saw Brad Keselowski hoist the American flag there on the start-finish line. So a tremendous week there, and being able to celebrate on Mother's Day. Again, as much as I'm not a fan of having a race on Mother's Day weekend, regardless, I think just a tremendous throwback in general. Guess it's not too long ago. You think about him winning the Southern 500 and the Rusty Wallace throwback himself there too. So, just a tremendous effort, and first and foremost. And the battle at the end, can't blame, honestly, Busher or Reddick for being disappointed or much less angry after the end of this. Kind of shades of the Bristol Dirt race where he had to come down to Briscoe and Reddick and them spinning out each other, and Reddick being very quick to apologize for being over aggressive there. Found himself in a very similar situation here. But this one, again, you had two drivers that were very close to being able to pull off their first wins at Darlington. Reddick looked absolutely unstoppable in this race. And not to mention, in a fine tribute to Tim Richmond, not just the traditional Folgers or Old Milwaukee schemes we've seen over the years, but actually a scheme that he won in a Daytona consolation race, which for newer fans, that was even just to get into the Daytona 500 field if you didn't make it in through the duels. Used to be you had so many cars you could put on a whole other race and get one other guy in there that way too. So a lot of history of really of the way way racing even used to be in the sport there too. I think it was Neil Castles that came up with a lot of consolation races, running those at Darlington and other tracks even further back in the sport's history. But this is going into the early 1980s on that. But regardless of the paint scheme there, again, Reddick had a fantastic car, easily the class of the field in this event, deserved to win if he could pull it off. Every pit stop, he seemed to be ahead of Brad Keselowski. It seemed like they were going to be the top two coming off every single stop. It was a matter of, it seemed like the distance was getting closer the more the race wore on, especially getting into stage 3 here. But every time that 45 was able to roll out, and you remember from the 500 days episode, getting that first stall, getting that pole position, is just as critical now as it's ever been. And you think back to when Jeff Gordon had his engine failure in 2001 in the spring race and how that opened a perfect door for Dale Jarrett to get the jump on a dominant Steve Park. Kind of shades of that. Although in this case here, pit road wasn't the ultimate decider of this. It was really what happened on the track. And what really, again, reminds me so much of 2003 is just, the way that it played out with these top drivers. In 2003, it looked like it was going to be a Jeff Gordon and Elliott Sadler battle for the finish there. And both of them got side by side. And even in that old car from so many years ago, it was a situation where, if you ran side by side for a long time, the car in third place was going to run up on you, even if you didn't hit the wall or anything. Just the vagaries of the aero component. And I remember watching that with my roommate back then. And, he said, "Oh, Jeff Gordon's got this in the bag." Then he gets stalled out with Sadler trying to get alongside him. Sadler couldn't get by. I believe he was the pole sitter for that race. And Kurt Busch just slingshot right around him, kind of similar to what we saw Busher do to get around him when Reddick and Keselowski couldn't unlock themselves from it. So again, as different as this car may be, as different as it may race, it still puts on a show at the tracks here. If they just figure out the short track deal, which is still a compelling issue, I think that would be there's definitely the missing element here, because I think at these other tracks, it's doing great. And it's great to see that Darlington still puts on a show with these guys just as easily as it would at the mile and a halves like we saw last week. In that case, they're back in 03. Kurt Busch got the lead, seemed like he was going to have it, and then power steering problems. The same that Daniel Hemrick faced today in this race. And Hemrick still managing to claw out a 33rd place finish 3 laps down, still finishing the race under power. Gutsy performance for the Colleague Racing effort there. But Kurt Busch ran out of power steering while leading the race and allowing Ricky Craven to reel him in after starting back in the 30s, I believe his 31st, 32nd spot, and got him for the lead in that famous photo finish that was only one-upped just last week. Come back to the lady in black here. We didn't have a photo finish here, but we did have a situation where you had, again, just like then, 3 drivers that are so close to each other, and that big move being pulled off within about, 20, 25 laps to go. But then it's a matter of, can you hang on? And thankfully, you didn't have any cautions or anything at the end. We didn't need a bunch of restarts, didn't need anything like that. I think that's where you get the best finishes there, because it's really a war of attrition. Who can hang on? Who can keep that car out of the wall or off of somebody else? And sometimes it comes down to somebody that cuts a tire or somebody that gets in the wall a little bit too hard. And, we saw that. I mean, again, you had the battle between Reddick and Keselowski initially, where, again, they stalled out and you let Busher go all the way down to the apron. Even in 2003, Kurt Busch didn't go nearly that far down the track there. Just a crazy move there, but he had to do it because they slowed up so much coming off that corner. If he got trapped behind him, there's going to be a 3-car wreck very easily. And then, who knows what would have happened at that point there. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and Buescher got the lead and led it for as long as he did. Seemed like he was just hanging on in front of Reddick. Reddick was reeling him in big time. At 45 was, again, bad, strong all day. Great effort by the Toyota team there, the 2311 program, to get a good car up there. You better believe he's going to be strong in the Southern 500. They piece that car back together, and that could be very significant there as where that race is going to be as a regular season finale instead of Daytona this year. So coming down to that, and then you had the other battle once Keselowski was still staying in touch there, dropped about 1.1 seconds back, got it back down to about 7/10 there, working behind the leaders. And then you had a battle between Buescher and Reddick. Buescher and Reddick get side by side, and neither of them are going to give an inch. And, you think back to the Craven and Busch deal there again, too. They bounced off the wall and were able to keep going. Luckily, at that point, it was pretty much the last couple of laps, so there wasn't a chance for really a tire to go down. But in this case here, unfortunately, it did, because it was so many laps to go. What was it, about 10 laps or so to go? And they got each other in the wall. You had Buescher trying to stick with the high lane there. Of course, he got snookered by the high lane by Kyle Larson last week, trying to keep it in there. Reddick was clearly trying to get up to the high lane because that's where he was able to hold Keselowski off as well as he did. Trying to get back around him. His car was coming up, and Buescher wasn't backing off. He stabbed the throttle to stay in there, and that was both the best move they could do to try to win the race, and ultimately that's what you're trying to do. Seemed like they're going to be able to keep going. I know Buescher gestured at Reddick coming off the corner. Reddick slowed down immediately, had a flat tire there. Buescher soon after, and Keselowski rockets right by him there. Both of them undoubtedly frustrated, but they put it all on the line. And that's why we all watch this. That's why we all want to see what happens at the end of these races, is who's going to be able to pull it off. And sometimes it just comes down to it. So I'm so glad that the race was allowed to play out to the finish it did. We saw some, again, tremendous efforts out there, not just by Keselowski, although, of course, again, a very tremendous victory that I know is going to be very meaningful for him and the RFK group in general, but also, again, by other drivers that really found their way up there and were very much there today. And again, I think this is a great storyline to build from here. Buescher, again, as he made very clear in his post-race fracas there with Reddick on pit road, he doesn't have that sticker on the roof of his car like Reddick does from Talladega. He needs to be able to try to pull off a win and get into the playoffs. He's been in and out of the top 16 this whole season with a bit of inconsistency there along the way. He's definitely shown speed. He's been very close to pulling off these wins, but with this current, the way this system is set up, and anticipating that if you get any kind of unusual winners along the way or drivers that aren't usually winless and then they punch their ticket, the only sure thing is to be able to pull off that win. And I have faith that it will for Buescher. If he continues to drive the way that he's been driving, he'll find his way there. We have the All-Star race next week, so we don't really have a Cup Points race there. But the Coca-Cola 600, very much a possibility. It would be tremendous for him, especially coming back from the bad flip he had there a couple of years ago, although it's going to definitely be one of many stories that'll be followed, not to mention Kyle Larson's attempt at running the double. And, our drivers like, are we going to see somebody like a Ty Gibbs pull off his first win? We saw him finish second in here, very nearly pulled off his first win at Darlington, the same way Regan Smith, now a pit reporter, did in another flat black car here in 2011. Didn't quite turn out that way, but again, a career best finish for him in the second spot. Josh Berry, again, best run we've seen out of Berry since Bristol, and the fine showing he showed out there, running the Rodney Childers paint scheme there, finishing in the third spot. Denny Hamlin in fourth, Chase Briscoe in fifth. So 2 Stewart-Haas cars in the top 5 and 3 Ford Dark Horses in the top 5 there as well. Definitely at a driver's track where, aerodynamics perhaps don't matter as much. And really the driver can make up for a lot of it, like Kevin Harvick described earlier in the broadcast. That seemed to spell the difference, and they found their way up there. William Byron in 6th, Bubba Wallace in 7th. Again, didn't mention him. Both the 2311 cars getting in the top 10, a fine showing there. Alex Bowman in 8th, and Justin Haley in the 9th spot. Fantastic run for him. The winner at Daytona a couple of years ago, in that lightning hold race. But his faith that he has put in the Rick Ware racing effort and his prediction of how strong they are this year compared to even in years past. Definitely legitimized in this one here, too. We saw him finish 18th last week at Kansas, which was already one of their best runs this year. Now they break into the top 10, and Kaz Grala being in the 18th spot here. Fine showing out of the Rick Ware team. Can't be happier for them. I mean, God knows they've certainly earned it from how many years they've been struggling along just to even, qualify for races or finish on the lead lap or not finish in last place. To see both of them do that well, fantastic job for them. They absolutely deserve the congratulations on it because, I mean, this is a difficult track for anyone, and it's a matter of survival, and it's not like they survived and finished 22nd or something like that. Getting a top 10 at Darlington, that's a very prestigious thing, especially if your team has been struggling and has been looking for consistency. So that was definitely earned there too. And then Michael McDowell, after the news last week of him going over to Spire Motorsports, driving a fine run there for the number 34 team. This was a track that always seemed to doom his efforts in the playoffs there, whether it was in 2021 at after winning the Daytona 500 and getting in a wreck in the Southern 500, or even last year when he had issues in the race there. To see him get a top 10 finish here, again, still looking for his first win of the season, a fine effort there. Who's to say that maybe it was somebody you have to watch in September about a chance at actually kind of getting in under the line and actually making it into the top 16 there. So we'll see how that shakes out. Ross Chastain just outside the top 10. Chase Elliott in 12th after starting at the back of the pack. Seemed to be really out to lunch at the very beginning of this in the Dale Jr. car. But again, a decent finish out of him. Christopher Bell seemed to have a litany of issues there, still got 13th. Noah Gragson was originally the last place starter and then finished in 14th. And Todd Gilliland was another driver I thought was very impressive in this race. This is a track that I don't really traditionally think of Gilliland being very competitive on. Seems like he's really kind of grown into being a very good super speedway driver from what we've seen at Atlanta and Talladega. But here he was top 10 for pretty much all of stage one. It seemed like he was still kind of contending in stage two, fell back a bit in the last one. But again, a fine showing for him, a 15th place finish. Again, I'm sure not what they wanted. They would have rather been up in the top 10 there. But they were here today, and running his old late model paint scheme may have been the difference there. Ryan Preece in 17th, right behind Corey LaJoie. Kaz Grala, mentioning him. Eric Jones back in the driver's seat after his back injury at Talladega. He gets a top 20 finish, finishing in the 19th spot, just ahead of Austin Cindric and Joey Logano, the Penske teammates, and so forth down the line here. Daniel Suarez, now you start looking a bit further back to teams that struggled here along the way. Daniel Suarez back in 24th was as low as 35th at one point in this race, but did get back on the lead lap at the closing stages there and get a decent finish. Martin Truex Jr., disappointed for sure with the damage that he sustained in the wreck between Buescher and Ryan Blaney coming off of turn 2. Could have ruined Buescher's race at that moment with the right front damage suffered to the number 17, but regardless, still was able to compete for the win there. Truex, his battle in the top 5 was pretty much ruined at that point, stoved in the nose of the number 19. He finished an uncharacteristic number 25th spot. Definitely not what we're used to seeing out of him. As with Kyle Busch, who made a couple hits to the outside wall there and finished back in the order in 27th. His struggles continue from Kansas and him spinning out of a top 5 last week. So we'll see how things turn around for him. Finishing just ahead of his teammate Austin Dillon in the 28th spot. Both of them the last 2 cars on the lead lap. Buescher, after his incident, finishes in 30th, 2 laps down. Tyler Reddick, also 2 laps down in 32nd, had a pit road infraction on top of the insult of the flat tire there, so they finished back in the order. Kyle Larson looked great out there in the Terry Labonte scheme. One of the most beautiful cars in the field in this race, but finishes back in 34th. And Zane Smith in 35th. Dave Marcus car wrecked on the front straightaway. And your last place finisher, the first for the number 12 since the 1952 Southern 500, which had 66 cars in the lineup. Ryan Blaney rounds out the field there. His first last place run of the year, his first since Nashville when he hit the unprotected barrier last summer in that race there. So again, a difficult afternoon for another driver that is still very much looking for their first win this season. And Ford ends up bookending the field here. This, of course, pending the results of post-race inspection here. So a fantastic effort here for these teams. I'm just kind of checking out the comments here at the same time. I want to make sure to kind of hit all the big points right at the top here. Yep, Ty is always in the mix, you say, Bretsky. Yep, exactly. Matter of time. Have to agree. I mean, it's, we're coming up. Maybe he goes back to Pocono where he made his first start and pulls something off there. Again, Darlington performances are something that I always lean very heavy on when I try to handicap drivers here, because if you're able to do very well here, especially if you finish well, if you win here, if you qualify well here, I think that's something that kind of underlines a name in the listing there too. Because if you have a situation that things fall away there, I mean, it can also it could very easily set drivers on the wrong track there for sure. Michael Jensen, thank you for the super chat here. Congrats to Brad. Props to Barry with a podium. And Justin Haley with legit top 10, not by strategy. MRN gave him their driver of the day. Well, congratulations again to Haley. Again, I wish I feel even more irritated that I didn't catch up with Haley after Kansas last week, because he was very impressive. I saw firsthand with him climbing up from the back of the field there. I was just gobsmacked from that finish last year. Last week. It was just surreal at that point. And a lot of drivers seemed like they got out of there pretty quick. But Haley is on a great stretch here. Hopefully they get, at least some camera time over in the All-Star event next week. Maybe they transfer in. Who knows? Haley has, of course, been one of the more aggressive ones with his All-Star vote campaign with him and Hocevar. So we'll see how things play out there in the hashtag, what was it, the Hail Yeah trend there. So that's pretty cool. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, there we go. Let's see here. Busher sure was excited to see his boss bring home the W. That was cool to see. I agree there, Braun Farms. That was fantastic. Again, it was a definitely tremendous effort. I mean, given especially undoubtedly how frustrated it is. I mean, a Darlington win, those only come along so many times. And Busher is not really the first driver you think of, but again, he's just on a hot streak right now. And he was good, I believe, at the Southern 500 last year. They mentioned he had a top 5. So again, not somebody to really overlook. And every time, I'm a firm believer of having a good paint scheme that usually kind of helps out too. Every time he runs that third car, whether it was that runner-up finish at Sears Point a couple of years ago, or of course his win at Daytona last summer, he always seems to just do that little bit better. And so maybe that's another part of it there too. Seeing a lot of comments on the commercials. Yeah, I mean, on the broadcast in general, it was a little difficult. There were some times where you would have a pretty good battle off pit road. And I think there was one where you had the leaders coming off pit road and they were trying to see how they were merging into traffic. And then they ended up following like 6th place Byron instead. There was a couple of shots where it was a little hard to follow the leaders because, again, the camera work was like behind and they kind of went this way and then they switched to another one where they're going this way. And these a couple of different angles. It made it a little difficult to see. I think these were issues much more with the production than the actual play-by-play. I thought Boyer actually did a pretty good job of calling Zane Smith's accident. He caught it when it happened. He identified him correctly, and he jumped right in it. And I would be remiss not to mention that here because I've been very critical of the way he handles play-by-play. I thought he was fine. I liked what the booth did when they brought Terry Labonte in. I liked that they didn't talk over him or make fun of him for being old or any of the things that, tend to happen there with the Fox broadcast here. I thought they handled it with the proper level of respect. I think that that Mike Joy has always done. So I think I liked the way that was done. I liked the questions they asked him about, the differences with the car and what you wanted out of a car for a setup at Darlington. And that's the greatest thing about this. I know that there's this NASCAR alumni program that has started up that's actually bringing up more of these old these legendary drivers to the track there to actually talk about, what the sport was like and really kind of bring that past and keep it alive. We saw Rick Mast there, Mike Skinner, Jeff Bodine, several other drivers participating in that this weekend. I thought it was fantastic. And, I hope that that's just the beginning of, what may come for sure. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic out there. I mean, a great race, great to see. And thoroughly entertaining, just like the Kansas race last week. I mean, this one it was a bit of a slow burn at the beginning compared to Kansas. The field had to get strung out a bit. You had a few people fall off the lead lap. There were some, you had some green flag pit stops, which was also surprising to see at this track that dropped some people back in the order, but everybody's still running. Guys like Derek Kraus that were running in the back there, having issues, still able to climb back up there. Kraus ends up the 29th spot in the Project Wyoming car. John Hunter Nemechek having a rough afternoon, had that spin. He still had to get dragged to his pit stall, which I'm sure damaged the diffuser underneath there. Nemechek ends up 2 laps down in the 31st spot, still finishes ahead of Reddick and Larson for that matter. But again, more an issue of adversity there and the issues there for a lot of the other big teams in the field. But the tremendous event there. Really enjoyed it. And again, Keselowski, a great victory for him there too. Again, the I believe the 2018 Southern 500 winner, if memory serves. I think that was the year between the two times Lasbro and I visited down there to see. I guess it was Denny Hamlin in 17, and 19 was Eric Jones. So there was that. So a stretch of again impressive runs there for sure. Let's see. Kind of going through the lineup here. We'll talk about the other races. We'll do trivia here in the show for those of you interested in that. I do have some stuff here for show and tell, and we'll get into that here in just a second. Alrighty. Yeah, Jeff Bodine on the radio broadcast yesterday, he said they are bringing the alumni thing to Wilkesboro and Charlotte too. Okay, thank you, Michael. That's fantastic news. So yeah, hopefully that'll be something that'll keep going. First win for the number 6 since David Reagan in 2011 at Daytona, I believe. Andrew, I think you are right, Andrew. Because I think the only thing that Brad had won, I mean, I guess there was there that one year that they swept the duels, but I mean that's obviously not a full points paying race, but yeah, for an actual event there and actually ending the streak, that would definitely be the one here. So a fantastic job there too. Yeah, I hate to see the Legacy Motor Club struggle so much, James Sykes. I see your comment there about Jones and John Hunter Nemechek. And again, I've been very high on John Hunter these past few years, especially in the Xfinity series. I was hoping that the switch to Toyota would help, maybe get a little bit more backing, but it's I don't know if it's just bad luck or what. But they seem to either have to overdrive those cars or just have problems there along the way too. So we'll see if things turn around for him, for both of them, really. Well, really all three, coming after the problems with Jimmy Johnson. With Johnson, it's not a talent issue there at all. I mean, how much is it just adjusting to the car and everything else under the sun there? So we'll find out on that. We'll talk about the Xfinity and Truck Series races as well. Made for a full week for sure. We can jump into all of that here. Let me bring this over here so it doesn't shake the camera quite as much. Let's see. I can talk a little bit about the next videos we're working on here too. Getting some more work this week on the Alan Kawicki project called After Alan. This is going to focus again on the period between Alan's championship, when he clinched the championship, and when the team was ultimately acquired by another driver there going forward. So really the period from November of 92 through the first part of 1994 is the period that 3-part series will cover. We're very close to that. I actually got some good editing done on that last night. I'd love to get that out this week if I can for Patreon members to get access to all 3 parts before we premiere part 1. And we'll see how that plays out. I'm very excited to get that going too. So now that we're back from Kansas, they can definitely start focusing on that too. Looking further through the field here on the Cup side. Yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to say on that. We'll kind of go back reverse chronologically here. We'll talk briefly about the Xfinity and Truck races. The Xfinity one was much more of a domination there by Justin Allgaier, pulling off the win there, leading 119 of 147 laps there in the Brandt Heritage machine there, the one that looked like the old agriculture truck there, kind of an interesting throwback. So that was, again, some beautiful schemes in the Xfinity series race for sure. Unfortunately, one of the best ones ended up being your last place finisher. Jeremy Clements had a great run in the Robert Presley throwback, at least in qualifying, but then in the race had an issue with the brake line ripped out, had to get the car pushed over to the garage area. That took a lot of time. Took about 50 laps down that dropped him to last place. Came back out about the same time that happened. Ryan Ellis had a catastrophic drive shaft failure that said, according to the description there, felt like something exploded underneath the car. Luckily, he was okay, because sometimes that could result in something pretty serious when a drive shaft flies apart there underneath one of these cars. But unfortunately, Ellis ends up in the garage area there at that point, did some damage to the transmission, and he ends up in last place. First finish for Ellis since 2015. So again, I think that presented a great opportunity to talk about the path that he's taken, of course, from being the driver that broke up Jeff Green's last place streak back in 2015, driving as a part-timer for Rick Ware and Victor Obaika in those programs, being away from the sport for a bit when he was a PR representative for Go Fast Racing and other teams too. Then he gets over to Alpha Prime right when they're reincorporating. He makes that 43 car his own, and he's getting some good runs. And it's unfortunate that he had a bad one here along the way, especially with such a beautiful car. Matrix Apparel, again, did a great job with the uniform shirts. I saw the videos they did. The Sweet and Low ad was hilarious with Ryan and Gabe Wood on there. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, unfortunately, a short afternoon for them after 71 laps. Ends up in the last place spot. Jeremy Clements ends up getting next to last, finishing the race under power. Right ahead of him, Haley Deegan, AJ Allmendinger, and Sammy Smith, rounding out the bottom five there. Again, looking out through the rest of the field, I think one of my favorites from that paint scheme there, besides Ryan Ellis's paint scheme, had to be the number 29 that Blaine Perkins had. That Cale Yarborough scheme is just gorgeous. I don't know if there's any plans that they're going to make that in diecast. It really should be, because I think it would be an absolute showstopper. The Hardy scheme, the yellow accents on it, that made it just a very distinctive one from the Wood brothers. Didn't have that darker red on it, and just really looked nice. I think that would be right up there with the Anthony Alfredo one I showed on the previous show a couple weeks ago there, just really being a nice piece out there. Brennan Poole's car won Best in Show for running the Hot Wheels paint scheme from 1997. Poole ended up finishing in the 20th spot, right behind Carson Quapple, who almost pulled off the Dover win a couple weeks ago. Shane Van Gisbergen pulling off the 15th place finish with no practice or qualifying. Was quite impressive, as was Anthony Alfredo, continuing his strong start to the season with a 14th place finish. Looking through here, Parker Kligerman said he had one of the best cars of his career. Had Scott Borchetta's old paint scheme there on the number 48. Seemed like he was going to be a factor to pull off his first win. Unfortunately, didn't shake out that way. You had the top five dominated by both Cup Series programs and the JR Motorsports entry of Sam Mayer that got the fourth place finish there behind his teammate, one of them rather, with Justin Allgaier pulling off the victory there too. But that sometimes ends up being the case there. So a solid Xfinity race, maybe not as competitive as what we saw in the Cup Series race today, but a gorgeous field. So many great paint schemes. Leland Honeyman going all in on the Kyle Petty paint scheme, wearing the wig like we saw to Kyle Larson back when this program started just a few years ago. Was really cool to see. I thought that was a great paint scheme. Chad Fincham did the Kevin Harvick scheme, which, unlike the one we saw from the All-Star race last year, got to have the number in the right spot. I thought they did a decent job. I don't know if Harvick actually went down there to see it or not, but hopefully he had the opportunity to, because I think they did a fine job with that there at the same time. I like Patrick Emmerling's car that looked like a modified. It reminded me very much of the old Tommy Baldwin paint schemes where they would do something very similar with Steve Park and some of these other drivers there too. We didn't even talk about Van Gisbergen's paint scheme itself with the update of the Marcos Ambrose scheme. I never thought I'd see that one as a throwback. I remember how unusual that one looked. It was black and yellow, and then it had these white numbers, and it just looked kind of like a rough draft of something. But Ambrose really made that his own, and people see that scheme, and you know it's very different from any other DeWalt scheme that was on the 20 car or the 17 or anything else in between. So that's cool to see that history that to me feels pretty recent, but I'm sure to a lot of you out there watching here feels, quite a while ago here at the same time. was being recognized there too. So that was interesting. Kudos to Kyle Weatherman as well. Understood, there was a family emergency he had to attend to, and it was good that he provided updates on that. Comes back from there to finish in the 17th spot again without practice and qualifying there. So a solid job for him there too. William Byron had kind of an adventure here too. Again, I'm not a big fan of Cup Series drivers running the lower series. However, at the same time, I think that, again, he really had a decent turnaround there, at the same time. He was running in the last place spot, multiple laps down after bouncing off the outside wall and not drawing a caution flag. Had to get the lucky dog a couple times, had to battle his way back up there, and still end up getting an 11th place finish on the lead lap. He didn't even get back on the lead lap until very late in this one. Kind of reminiscent of Dale Jarrett's charge at the Brickyard 400 after losing multiple laps on a fuel stop there. Again, fine job. Credit where credit's due. I thought that was impressive and definitely worth noting there at the same time. Still don't think he should have been in the start at all. I would have much rather a newcomer, a Raja Caruth or somebody like that that's working their way up the ranks be the next Ricky Hendrick caliber driver to get behind the wheel of that car. Hopefully we're going to, see some exciting things out of that team at Sears Point next month with Boris Said gets behind the wheel there. So we'll find out there. But congratulations to Allgaier for pulling off the win, especially after so many slipped through his grasp. The FS1 montage was getting a little bit long there, showing everything from the miscues at Texas to the wreck at Phoenix and everything in between. So definitely a great effort for him. Speaking of Cup Series drivers running in the lower series, Ross Chastain pulling off the win in the Truck Series. Don't really mind that one either, actually, to be perfectly honest. Driving for a smaller organization. In fact, the team that really helped Chastain make a move into the Xfinity Series before the DC Solar thing collapsed on him there. Driving for Al Neese in 2019 and pulling off those big wins out there, whether it was the one in Iowa that got taken away from him, and then bouncing back and pulling off the Gateway win there on Sears Point weekend, and then coming out to run for Premium Motorsports that weekend. He's really paid his dues in that time there. And I appreciated him also bringing into focus the importance of, farmers in the United States and how few people really are responsible for, for providing food for the country here. So I think that was a perfect message there from him. And of course, everybody enjoying him smashing the watermelon on the finish line there. And a good effort there. And great for Al Neese as well, because they've been kind of touch and go this year. At the same time, although, again, hopefully I was still hoping that Caden Honeycutt gets more offers in that ride because he was absolutely very impressive last week in Kansas and deserves that opportunity. We did not see him in any of the races this weekend. Would have been enjoyable to certainly see him out there. But regardless, Chastain leads just 3 laps to pull off the victory there over Nick Sanchez. Ben Rhodes in third, Christian Eckes in fourth. Ty Majeski bounces back from his last place run at Kansas to finish in fifth. Chase Purdy sixth. Colby Howard in the Tricon entry in the 7th spot there with Taylor Gray, his teammate in 8th. Ty Dillon takes home a 9th place finish there, so fine effort there for the Rackley War efforts and the driver getting back down into the Truck Series. And then another Tricon entry in Tanner Gray finishing in the 10th spot. Your last place finisher turned out to be very historic in that one. Highly unusual to see Kyle Busch have a problem, any kind of problem in a Truck Series race. He always seems to have these very well in hand. But going into that race, didn't realize quite how rare it had been. We had Nick Sanchez have to give up the pole because of a hub issue that dropped him to the back of the field. Kyle Busch ends up pretty much going for the lead on the second lap of the race, going alongside Corey Heim. Seemed like it was only going to be a matter of time till he extended a big lead out there. But this was his first Truck Series start at Darlington, which was highly unusual. You'd think he'd been, not only running all these tracks, but winning at them. Obviously, the Darlington race has been off the truck schedule for a number of years before getting on there. It's kind of like an Xfinity race in Martinsville in that sense. But regardless, to see him suddenly lose control off the second corner and hit the inside wall, highly unusual. And ultimately was his first last place finish in his 175th career Truck Series start. Highly strange, but also adding to the strangeness of this, if this were his own team, I'm sure he would have rather just pulled behind the wall and not messed with it, much like we've seen out of him. Well, it wasn't his ride at Joe Gibbs either, but it seemed like a lot of times he would just pull the garage in those races too. But in this one here, the team actually tried to fix the truck and get him back out there. And they indeed did that. Got him back out there. He was about 4 or 5 laps down. But the limits of the crash clock, I think, were very much shown here. I think it's not always feasible to be able to fix it under these circumstances, especially when you kind of hamstring these teams and don't let them use all the tools that they want, never mind for the amount of time that they want. Sent Busch out there and ended up just destroying the truck, finishing it off there in the turn 1 wall. Very easily could have collected the leaders in the process, as Heim had just lapped him for a 5th time right before that wreck happened. That could have been even more disastrous there. But regardless, ended up being Kyle Busch in the last spot, driving the truck behind the wall in the Cup garage, which was a bit confusing for the team before they actually pulled him back to the Truck Series garage there at the same time. But the very rare last place run for the number 7, I believe Andy Lally was the most recent one to finish last for him for the Motorsports group, or excuse me, the Razors group, well before the Motorsports group. We're talking back in the late 2000s there. Of course, Kyle's first there, completing the last car Triple Crown. He had his first last place run in Xfinity in 2003, first in Cup in 2004. And really kind of puts in perspective just how incredible his career has been. Again, I'm not a big fan of Cup guys running the lower series here, especially with Kyle Busch, for how excellent he's been. But again, I think one thing that was an opportunity, at least in the article, was to illustrate just how dominant he had been and how rare it was. I mean, even an off year that he had in 2012 where he didn't win, he was pretty much like 4th or better in all those starts that he made that year. But again, that's because he's a top caliber Cup driver. He's a championship caliber driver and really shouldn't be meddling along with these. And I don't know if this changes that. It seemed like it changed it for Kevin Harvick when he got the tangle with Chastain in 2018 during the Xfinity race, which I'm sure was exactly why Chastain was so emotional in victory lane there and winning the race on Friday. But again, interesting to see that shake out. Turn 2 was also a very treacherous spot there for other drivers, not just Kyle Busch. You had the big pileup that happened there, very similar to what we saw in the Cup race today, or at least how much it could have been. You had a stack up there with Dean Thompson, Raja Karuth, and Matt Crafton being involved. Corey Heim also taken out after a fine showing for him, leading 77 of the first 105 laps. He only has a 28th place finish to show for it. But again, one of the hottest drivers in the Truck Series the last couple of years, not just this year, of course. Will no doubt be bouncing back from that at the same time there, too. Hated to see Tyler Ankrum back in the order in 26 in that beautiful Russ Wheeler truck. Won Best of Show for that series. I don't know if we've heard what Best of Show for the Cup Series one is yet, but that would be definitely one to look at there, too. But we'll see what happens. But looking back at the order there, I love Daniel Dye's Peak truck. I thought that one was gorgeous. Really between Tyler Ankrum's, Daniel Dye's, and then the Jack Woods Arctic one that brought back what Dawson Cram did a few years ago with the Herb Thomas the Tim Flock throwback with the monkey as the passenger there. That was pretty cool. To use the Jocko Flacco famous story there about that. That was cool. A really fun bit of NASCAR history there to throw into the race as well. Hated to see Lane Riggs get some damage there as well. He had a fine showing. He was top 5 early on, but ended up being back in the order there too. Solid weekend really on all fronts for sure. Alrighty. Oh, we got folks from you got Iceberg in here, or we have a raid here. I don't know, but regardless, definitely thank you for checking out here in the stream here at the same time. Hope you definitely enjoyed the show. There's no shortage to talk about. I'm sure Iceberg's own show, he's got plenty to talk about. It's been a massive weekend there. But yeah, and Ben, I see your comment there on Ross Chastain. I'm with you there too. Again, I'm not a big fan of him actually running it at all. Somehow it seems a little, not as bad with the Nice team. I know he tries to do that too with the Mario Gosselin one. I'd still rather he not be in it, but I think of it more as like a one-time exception in this one because he had that Xfinity win taken from him here, and clearly he knows that a Darlington win means a lot to him. Now, would it be better if he won a cup race here? Oh, for sure, and he did have some adversity to overcome here today and wasn't quite really a factor in there. But I'll give him a pass on this one. That's kind of what that's about as far as I'll go on that. Do I think he should do this like every year? No, of course not. Absolutely not. And yeah, I do think he should focus much more on his cup career and pull off some more wins there too. So yeah. Let's see. Here we go. Let's see. Oh, definitely appreciate you guys checking out the show here on this too. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get some other people checking this out too. Oh, we got 71. That's solid for this, actually. So we'll get some trivia here in a little bit. And we'll get, let's see, I have something here for show and tell. And we'll go through that. Let me just look at the Truck Series results again. Anything else that stands out? Lawless Allen. I didn't mention this in my article, and I really should have. Had a great run out there. 12th place finish after the great run he had in the ARCA race at Kansas last week with the Josh Room team. Finishing in 12th is a great effort out there. Again, a very difficult track, and it wasn't because of adversity so much. I mean, you did have, 5, 6, 7 DNFs there at the back of the field there. But he could have very easily finished 21st, 22nd laps down there, but did not. Finished on the lead lap within striking distance of a top 10, which would have been massive for Josh's team out there. Great effort for him. Solid effort as well for Faction 46. I know it's a team that's been a bit overlooked, shown up a disproportionate times in our last car articles this year. There's always some team that's always going to be struggling at one point or another. But the 46 truck finishing in the 18th spot in the Bobby Hamilton throwback. They had a great uniform that Thad was wearing there that was very reminiscent of Bobby Hamilton's uniform. I thought that was really cool to see. And I'm glad they got the race in fact. I mean, with the rain and hail that was coming down, that worked out pretty well for me personally because it was a bit challenging getting back from work that day there. But regardless, again, a solid race with no shortage of surprises right from the start with the Kyle Busch deal there. And don't blame him for being frustrated at all. But it just so happened that that was a very big story. And sometimes being a last place finisher can be a big story. Again, I got that question a few years ago about if it's really that important, if it's that big of a story when you don't have start and park teams out there. And I'd say even more so because it can literally be anybody. And the crash clock and everything else that can happen and just weird stuff that happens to these race vehicles out there. Any kind of mechanical issue. I mean, we saw a roof fly off on, Bailey Curry's truck back in Atlanta. That could be as much to take somebody out of contention. So that's definitely another possibility. Let's see the comments for John Hunter as well there. Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen Hannah Montana SOT Productions. So yeah, I don't quite get the reference there, but I will presume that that's going to be definitely a bit of a battle there for sure. Jude Fernandez, I see today is Brad Keselowski avenging Chris Buescher last week and Kurt Busch in 2003. That's a cool way to look at it. I mean, basically, both those being Roush cars that came very close to winning some of the closest finishes. I probably even add Ryan Sieg in there in terms of the Ford camp there of losing photo finishes there too. But yeah, that would be a different one there too. Oh yeah, no, I mean I'm seeing the other comments on here too. I'm glad. I'm sure other people are doing post race shows. They should, and especially on a race like this. Look, I mean everybody should pitch in and go ahead and talk about what's happening at the end of these races. I mean, not everybody's going to have the same perspective on it. So and everything. So I'm glad that's out there. What's great about it too is after they're all over with, I mean, I'm sure you can only watch one at a time. If you had me in your ear and somebody else, I felt so bad for Urinating Tree last year when we did that. I was doing the watch along for the 2000 Talladega race, and he had me on a rate, and he basically had my mic open on his show, and it just had me rambling on at this rate. I mean, his listeners must just have their heads exploding there at that point. It's like, look, everybody has a different pace there. I know he is a much more relaxed, kind of conversational thing. I try to do that, but I also like to kind of string things together and kind of move things along here on this to kind of get the stories out as much as I can, because there's just so many stories out there. Not to say that there isn't with his work there too. So, but yeah, no, I'm glad there's other shows out there, because it's great, because then you can actually listen to them all during the week. I think this is, again, we talked about the NASCAR Race Hub, wrapping up next month. And again, it's awful for the people working there. And I'm hoping, I've heard that they're making it sound more like that they're actually letting people go, which is terrible, because there's a lot of really talented people that should be involved in the sport for sure. I was hoping it was more just a reorganization, because they have that new NASCAR, technical facility and everything. And look like they're putting a lot more money into the media side of it. Hopefully they can just find places for people there. That was my hope, at least. But again, if it's not that show, maybe they do something on the internet instead. I seriously doubt that Radioactive is going to go anywhere. Everybody likes that segment. Yeah, there's a lot of talented people there that should be involved in the sport still. So I hope that that's going to be the case. Whether or not that does happen, unfortunately, I mean, I don't know more about it than anybody else does. That's kind of the situation here. Yeah, Urinating Tree did, Death Killer. Yeah, he had me. I mean, somebody, I guess, mentioned that I was streaming the Talladega thing, and actually I was rushing even more, because I was like, okay, if Urinating Tree is watching, let me go ahead and jump into the race and just kind of start that thing. That's why I was kind of doing it. But unfortunately, yeah, I mean, I was on there, and it just made his show just, I screwed up the flow of his show, and I feel bad for that, because I love what he does. I think he's, I've always enjoyed his video game reviews. I mean, there's that, you notice when we did the Green Sears Point video, when Last Bro was driving the car around the track, we had just listened to his Tasmania review on the way up there, one of his old video game reviews from the 2000s. And I know he's distanced himself from all that, but I don't see any real problem with them. I think they're hilarious, and they're timeless. I think that, there's a lot of my, old stuff on my channel here that's different from what I do now. I mean, the starting grids are a whole different era and stuff. But that's just a part of it. I've thought about splitting off, the videos onto a new channel, but at this point here, I don't want to lose all the comments and the old chats and stuff like that. And so, it maybe isn't helping the branding of the channel very well. And maybe that's a reason that it doesn't really have, the most subscribers on it there, because maybe people are confused about what the hell I do. But after last week, I feel better about that. So I'm glad that that's worked out better for sure. Oh, yeah, Beast Metal, it was you. Okay, there you go. No, much appreciated. Yeah, that's right. It was you, because I think I did mention it in the chat there at the time there, because I know you've been a frequent viewer of the show here as well. So that'll be another part. Let's see. What happened to Joey? Joey Logano's car in the Cup race, he seemed like there was that one, didn't he bounce off the wall at some point? I know there was that one pit stop where he had a lot of smoke coming off his car. But I mean, in Darlington, he'll just wear out anybody's car. See Logano in the 21st spot, 20.906 seconds back of the leader, just behind his teammate Cindric. Yeah, not sure, but bad afternoon in general for the Penske team, on top of Blaney's last place run there too. I hope it wasn't too indulgent. I almost didn't post that tweet there where I said he watches my videos. I don't want to ring my bell too much on that there, but I couldn't help it. I mean, it was just, I wrote it, I deleted it, I wrote it again, and I was like, okay, let me just post it, because it is surreal. It was, very happy for Keselowski on this. I mean, it's, and not just because of that. I don't want to make it seem like it's just because of that. I mean, it's been a long haul since 2021, and it was a massive gamble. I don't think I emphasized this enough at the top of the show here. It was a huge gamble to walk away from what would have been a very easy team for him to just retire at the Penske team. It's not like he was having a terrible year in 2021. I think he would have made the transition fine at Penske Racing, especially since Austin Cindric won the 500 with his team like the very next year. I think he probably could have been done just what Harvick did, maybe just ran a few years, in the transition of that, and then, helped, Austin Cindric or anybody else developing the line there in his career. But he took this big gamble to invest in Roush Racing to make sure that they had a future, and to develop that program, and came with a new attitude, new branding, putting himself in the 6 car there, knowing how much history that number has had, especially under Roush's purview since the late 80s. Not to mention, of course, the road racing history that Roush has had there. But that was a big gamble, and there was no guarantee that was going to work. I remember how much they struggled at both cars really struggled at the Clash in 2022. We didn't really see him that much. Talked with Lastbro about it. I mean, he told me that basically every time he sees a 6 car, he doesn't really have a clear image of what that car looks like on the track, because it doesn't seem like it's shown that much in the broadcast, or it's like talked about. And of course all these teams are running different paint schemes and so forth, and Buescher, of course, has been getting more attention, understandably, from these many great runs he's had, especially these last couple of years. It seems like Keselowski's kind of been overlooked there in that, and but he has been gaining, and he's been really redeveloped this program, made it as strong as it's been, keeping Roush involved in it, and the Fenway group there too, with this new branding, and this is exciting. It's tremendously exciting. Now he's going to be able to have a chance to compete for the championship. We'll see how that plays out when we get September seems like it's a long way, but it's not really. We're coming down to the stretch run here, and I'm sure that tension is the same thing that we saw out of Buescher in that post race. He doesn't know if he's going to go through a tough slide and maybe not be able to pull off another win here, or if somebody else is going to point their way in ahead of him, like we saw in the Blaney and Truex battle not too long ago. So, it's a tough deal there on all fronts, but it's just so good. I mean, when you see a veteran driver out there, I mean, you talked about Terry Labonte in the booth there, and him not knowing in 2003 that winning the Southern 500 that year was going to be his last win. I mean, obviously you never know. You're never going to know. You think like, okay, maybe this is going to kick something off and maybe get some more wins along the way. But that wasn't the case for Terry. He ended up winning his last race at the scene of his first. Keselowski, I mean, these number of years, again, I don't know how much, that streak had frustrated him. Undoubtedly he wanted to be, as successful as Buescher. And I'm sure, if it did continue, that's one thing to look at versus another. But this, again, he'd been getting closer, and, that 6 team had been improving, and, really kind of pulling out of the doldrums of that first year in 2022. And, again, we're only talking a couple years later, not even a couple full seasons later, to be able to kind of get this. So now you have 2 winning teams, even behind the 8 ball of a car that, really has not been at all dominant this year, breaking the winless streak that Ford has had in all 3 series this year. For him to be able to do that, that's a massive feather in his cap. It has to be. And to do it at such a difficult track out there. I don't believe that Keselowski is the type of driver that would ever question his abilities out there. And I don't think he had any reason to, certainly. But I mean, winning helps. If there ever was some kind of problem there, whether it was sponsorship or performance or anything else, I think that, winning solves a lot of things, and winning this way in such a dramatic fashion and going toe to toe with your teammate, and also the most dominant car in the field, and being able to pull it off, that's going to be massive, and that's going to carry a lot through this summer stretch here and into the playoffs here for him. I'm sure. Well, the other thing I didn't mention from what was really cool in that battle, wasn't it so crazy where at a track like Darlington, where the draft means nothing, where aerodynamics mean not that much, that Buescher came up there when Keselowski was locked up next to Reddick, that Buescher came up there and was shoving him into the corner, just trying to get him by, and almost to the point of wrecking him. Aggressive move, but I mean, certainly, shows just, how determined this team is to lift all boats. If they can get, another 1-2 finish like they had at Daytona last year, they're certainly going to try for it. And that was definitely the case. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way with how physical it got there at the end, but that is absolutely not the first time that's happened in Darlington, and I certainly hope it won't be the last, because there's a long history of drivers coming across the finish line with flat tires or parts flying off their cars at the same time, and it could be every bit as physical as a short track like a Bristol or a Martinsville. It's fantastic to see. On top of the throwback deal from this weekend, I think that again, I think the sport's in a fantastic spot right now, especially with the Cup Series. Not to say there's other things they need to work on. Again, I think they do still need to look at the safety issues with what caused Ryan Priest's situation, although we did get more information on that about what gap in the exhaust caused that. But again, for it to reach the foam that easily, that's something that should be looked at, and I'm hopeful that NASCAR is doing that. And then, of course, the short track deal, what's the solution? I mean, what is it? Is it horsepower? Is it tires? It doesn't seem like it's aero because they've given up on that. What's going to be the story there? So hopefully we'll find out at the same time. But yeah, lots to take in for sure. So an exciting week for sure. I mean, I just really enjoyed this one. I think we go to North Wilkesboro next week. We got practice and everything starting for the Indy 500. I know this isn't really an IndyCar show, but undoubtedly, I mean, Kyle Larson's attempt at the double is going to be a big story here the rest of the month. He showed a lot of speed in practice or in testing earlier this month. The countdown begins for sure. So it's gonna be interesting. And then we got Kevin Harvick helping out Kyle Larson at Wilkesboro next week for the All-Star race, where Larson happens to be the defending winner of it in dominant fashion there. Is it going to be a different race with this new pavement? I'll tell you what, I was initially against repaving the track just because I thought it would, I thought it was kind of cool, and selfishly, I wanted to have the opportunity to go up there and just see it myself. I hate to have missed that, while at the same time, though, this track with a new pavement on it, she shines up beautiful. Wilkesboro looks fantastic out there, looks very fast. I think you're going to see a great show in the Truck Series this next week. They were already great last year when it was basically just gravel out there that they were racing on. So I think that'll be good. It's the Cup Series race. I know everybody has their apprehensions about that, and understandably, given the short track program, I do think that Wilkesboro, even with the best setup, still was prone to having long green flag runs and being an endurance race. And that's why I still think a points-paying race would be actually a more interesting venue than the All-Star race. However, if this is the step to get there, much like we've seen Nashville Super Speedway as a potential, way to get towards racing at the Nashville Fairgrounds, if this is a step that's needed to take to get to that point, I'm very happy to see that there. But, again, it'll be different with the new pavement. We got the tire combinations. That's going to be interesting too. We'll see. I guess we can narrow down if that's going to be a big factor in this, or if they need to start looking at horsepower again. But I'm excited. It's just as exciting as ever. That part of my brain still triggers when I think of saying North Wilkesboro's next week. That sounds like saying something. I would have said that back in 1994 when I was in grade school. It's true today, and it's fantastic that that's our reality, and that we race anything there. Never mind a Cup Series All-Star race and the Truck Series there. So that's going to be great. I'm excited about it this next week. We'll have the entry list deal up for you on Friday to talk about the storylines going into it. And we're counting down the last few weeks till Sears Point. I mean, we got Wilkesboro, we got the 600, we got Gateway, and then Sears Point. So basically a month from now, we'll be getting ready for that. We got the credentials here. Both myself and Ben will be there, our staff writer there for the ARCA West series. It's going to be really cool. So we're just now kind of getting our feet back under us here after Kansas, Lastbro and myself, that is. Going to be plenty busy. I need to push the Alan Kowicki video across the line. Seeing Keselowski do the Polish victory lap there was definitely a throwback there at the same time. So I enjoyed that, and hopefully that'll be something there too, to work my way up there. Laser Bro, I see your video, see your comment there about the slap shoes video on Alan Kowicki ruined NASCAR. It's kind of interesting. I thought it was an interesting argument for sure. And I see what he's going for. I think there were a lot of drivers that after Kowicki won this championship, people thought that they could do the owner-driver thing too. Some of them were already thinking about it. This will be more evident in the video I'm working on. But at the, at the same time, do I think that ruined the sport necessarily? I don't think so. because again, you had Ricky Rudd was very good with his team, and I think he would have kept that team going if that the Tide sponsorship was going to stay and not leave over to PPI Motorsports. I know people may not view that him winning no more than 2 races in a year puts him in the same elite company as like a Dale Jarrett or a Mark Martin or so forth. I completely disagree. I think that his longevity in the sport, which was completely uninterrupted by him going to his own team, was definitely very helpful. And the other thing you got to look at too is there's a lot of driver team combinations that came up in that time period where they weren't owner driver teams that really did struggle. It's not like Hendrick Motorsports immediately started dominating with all their drivers. I mean, Ken Schrader still went winless during that same stretch after committing to staying with that team for many years. You had Hut Strickland didn't pull off a win when he drove for Junior Johnson, and ultimately it took Jimmy Spencer to step in, and then even that didn't really go. So I think that the owner driver operations of that era were on much more fair terms with a lot of the big name programs then than maybe they were towards the end of the 90s there when they were closing down anyway. So I don't think that really took that much away. Now, then again, you did have drivers, and it is fair to point out that really did struggle a bit more. I think Bill Elliott is the best example of that. I think that team just started to kind of figure things out in 2000. I think that was the best that they had ever been. They probably could have scored a couple wins that year, won a qualifying race that season, but it just wasn't in the cards, and he never won in the 94 car, which is a shame. Not just being Casey Elliott's number before he passed, but also just a number that's never really, that hasn't won in NASCAR in years, if ever. So that would have been something interesting. And of course, the Top Flight sponsorship with McDonald's there too, which of course we still see today with Bubba Wallace. It's a shame that didn't work out. But again, it was a toss up. I think that Jeff Bodine's team was very successful in 94. It was inconsistent, and I won't spoil that for you because Dominic Aragon's book covers that subject way better about why that was happening and what happened with that team. So I'll leave that to there if you haven't checked that out. All of it, the book that he and Jeff co-wrote there on that. But then, you got Brett Bodine that had some solid runs there, brought Hooters back into the sport even, and others, and had some solid runs there too. It wasn't like they were completely out to lunch. I think that there may be a bit of a recency bias where you would look at if they came into the sport now, they would struggle way more. But I don't think that it hampered the careers of that many drivers. I think either they were drivers that were already kind of on the later part of their careers, again, kind of like Brett Bodine, kind of like, Brett stands out, I think, in that sense, because I know that he took on a lot by acquiring Junior Johnson's team there too. But I think Ricky Rudd, as much as his career was rejuvenated by Robert Yates, he still didn't win more than 1 or 2 races a year. It's not like he went through a drought for all those seasons there, and I thought that was good. And then, at the same time, you had other programs that, again, I'm repeating myself here, but that I think it's a very interesting theory, and I think Bill Elliott's story, it probably skews that more than anything because Bill has been so outspoken about what a mistake it was for him to be owning his own team and how it just loosened him up completely when he went over to Evernham and was winning right away after he hadn't won really since he left Junior Johnson in 94. I think for him it was the wrong choice. But for the sport, I have a harder time with that because I think Jeff was good. I think Rudd was very good. I think Brett could have been solid. I mean, it wasn't the best team, but I don't think he was that far off the pace. And so forth from there. I mean, I'm sure there's other examples I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but those definitely stand out for sure. But it's interesting theory. I don't want to dump on it. I love Slap Shoes, and I think he does fantastic content. And believe me, I've had videos I put out there where, people aren't going to agree with me 100% either, and I totally get it. So we're all trying to figure things out. But I enjoyed it though. I thought it was an interesting way to look at it because, looking at it, this many years, in the future, you can kind of look at some of those trends, and that's definitely a part of it there. Let's see here. Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, Jeff Gordon. Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I have my own, issues with Jeff Gordon in his career. I think that again, my thesis from my video in 2019 was that really what made the 90s such a great era in the sport was that it was in the process of ending. That Jeff Gordon was ending that era because he was way better than any of the other drivers that had been there for years, for decades. And it was only a matter of time until he was just going to completely take over, and with drivers of his caliber. And that's really what the 2000s became, when you had Kenseth and Stewart and Edwards and all these other guys. Not that that's bad. The sport's always been changing, and the way that, your Earnhardts, your Rusty Wallaces and stuff came in, they came in at the expense of, the original greats, like your Richard Petty's and Bobby Allison's. It's always been a generational shift. And that's why I've always, tried to, not be entirely negative about things that change in the sport, because, that's always been the norm. And it's always going to, because you're going to have teams that are going to try to find advantages over somebody else, whether it's something they do to their cars or what drivers they hire or what sponsors they bring in. And I've always found that exciting, whether it's the silly season angle of it and just knowing that things change during the year. Of course, we're seeing that this year is no exception. But I think that's great. And I think it's silly to rebel against that. And what's great about it is in the years afterwards, you have things like Throwback Weekend where, you can indulge in what was the best elements of that and not have to worry about things that were not so good about those times, like safety, like issues with safety and so forth. So yeah, that's the exciting part there too. So, you get to have the best of both worlds. And that's nice. And I certainly don't think, and again, as I said on last week's show, I certainly don't think that Throwback Weekend has run its course. I don't think that the teams are over it. It's unfortunate that it's not, it's fewer teams running throwback schemes, especially in Cup. But I don't think that is indicative necessarily of it going away. I think that again, it rises and falls. It changes over time. We're just kind of going through a period there where it's maybe not as strong as it used to be. So that'll be another part of it there too. But yeah, I think that would be a different way to look at it there at that point too. Let's see. We'll do trivia here in a little bit. I kind of like to transition into some show and tell here. We'll go ahead and bring out our throwback device here. If you guys have any other questions from the race weekend that I didn't cover, I'll check my notes here too and see if I got everything I wanted to kind of talk about on the show here tonight. I got a couple of points here. I'll go ahead and kind of go through these pretty quick. First of all, belated congratulations to Daniel Suarez on earning his dual citizenship. Again, as I said on social media, that's no small accomplishment. There's a lot of steps you got to go through on all that, and it really shows. Again, as much as in this country, he's been, everybody, of course, has a dedicated fan base for him. I saw that firsthand at Sears Point, just how excited everybody was for him in his first win there. And it's cool because that speaks volumes about, it's a commitment. I don't want to put it that way, but it really is. It's a commitment to the U.S. as well, not just for his homeland too. So, that's great. It's great. And congratulations to him on that. On the sadder side of things, we talked about the Bud Moore paint scheme that came up for Haley Deegan there this week. A bad run that they had, unfortunately, with a flat tire. There was the news of the shop burning down not long after Stapleton 42 did his video on that recently. And with the passing of Greg Moore not long ago, and then the shop burning down, just awful news there. And again, I'm hopeful that more of Spartanburg's history and its connection to motorsports, as again, Stapleton did a great job summarizing that there, is recognized and celebrated in the sport. Thankfully, we have Jeremy Clements in the Xfinity series, who is very much carrying, the legacy of that with his team there. But that was sad to hear. Very reminiscent of what happened with Smokey Unick's shop down in Daytona there years ago. It just shows the importance of really preserving as much of this history as possible. And sadly, that's not always possible. But that was definitely another story recently. And another one here back earlier this month before we went out to Kansas. I hope you guys get a chance to see that Roland Ratzenberger documentary that was posted on there. Of course, the driver that lost his life on that tragic weekend at Imola in 1994, the day before Ayrton Senna's accident at the same track there. There was a fantastic 4-part documentary. It's only about an hour long when you put the 4 parts together. But really, a really great production there on that. Some of it is in subtitles there because, of course, it's, going to multiple different countries there at the same time. But covering his part of the story there, I see a lot of overlap in that personally with the story of Rodney Orr versus Neil Bonnet in the same year, really, at Daytona that year, where you have a driver, 2 tragedies equal in scope. One that really overshadowed the other based on just how public of a figure the other person was. So I encourage you to check that out. I think the person, the group that was involved in that there did a fantastic job with that. If you Google it on YouTube, it'll come up pretty early on that there too. So that'll be another one. Let's see. So we'll do trivia here in the meantime here. And let me go ahead and we'll go through the usual categories here on the old Trivial Pursuit thing for the late 90s. So again, it is NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Excuse me for just a moment. Sorry about that. I thought I was going to sneeze for a moment. Allergy season's in full effect here. I don't think I'm quite as congested as I was last week. It was more of a shock coming back here to California. We've had pollen just shaking from the trees here this week. So we're still working on that. But go ahead and let me know which category you'd like, and we'll do some questions on that to wrap up the show and anything else you'd like me to talk about from here. Well, Carson, host of our Win Most Popular Driver, maybe. It's hard to say. It could be in contention. I think now that Chase Elliott ended his losing streak, I think that's going to be a little bit more difficult this year. Elliott will probably be a shoe-in again. I don't know what it takes to win that, because it seems like once you win it once, you're going to stay doing it unless something really seismic happens in the sport, like the 89 All-Star race did for Darrell Waltrip. Good question, though. Let's see. Alrighty. So again, yes, categories: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild cards. Make sure I did hit the mute there. Okay, good. I did unmute it. Excellent. So I got a couple things here that I want to kind of show on here. I'm going to set this aside because it's been clanking around too much here. And we'll show that. I mentioned the Alan Kowicki video that I'm working on here. And one thing I wanted to do in it is I wanted to kind of feature some of the diecast that was produced that year, some of which that I have in my collection. And I wanted to kind of show that here. One of which I'm going to show on the camera here and kind of get this on the shot. There we go. This is a Racing Champions diecast that was produced shortly after the accident. And it's interesting because, of course, you'll notice, of course, that the Hooters logo isn't on the car anywhere. And this was something I noticed with Chase Elliott's paint scheme now, that it's a red and black scheme instead of an orange and black. Orange used to be more the color of the Hooters schemes. But it seemed like in 1993, when there was this transition with the program, they kind of went for more of this kind of darker red shade there. I don't exactly know what the issue was with that. But an interesting scheme here with the Alan Kowicki Racing logo on the hood of the car there. It's one of many examples. There's kind of the view there on the back there with the AK logo there on the back there too. And this being with Jimmy Hensley's name above the hood. That story will be told more in full in the After Allen video here. But this was really, again, kind of more symbolic of that time period in the sport there where, you had a owner-driver operation. And, kind of following up on the Slap Shoes video here, talking about drivers that were, trying to piece the rest of the season together since we lost Allen in April of that year. We're only 5 races into the season. Just what was happening with that program. And a lot of it started off with cars without the Hooters sponsorship on it. So that'll be another story to come up with that too. Another one I wanted to kind of show on the much lighter side here. This is something I found online recently about classic merch. Check this bad boy out here. This old Ted Musgrave hat here. Now I'm very outspoken about merch in general, but this came across even with the tag, the old checker flag sports tag on it. Ted Musgrave hat from 19, I guess this was with Prime Star, so that'd probably be in 95, 96. Because he didn't have Prime Star on the car in 94, but the Family Channel sponsorship. Actually, this has a connection to the Kawicki story, too. But I love this style here with these bold colors, how the color kind of goes onto the bill here. I was noticing at Kansas, like how bright orange colors, like bright neon colors, seem to be kind of coming back in style. And we're on like a lot of shirts and hats and so forth. And this is the kind of style here, too, that's pretty cool. I mean, they're starting to do it with the 47 brand hats where they have like the last name of the driver and the car number on there. And those look really nice. I like that they're doing that. It's a step closer to this. But yeah, something here with kind of that aggressive color blocking and something that just, yeah, stands out really nice there on that. I thought this was just gorgeous. And then you look at the back here. I'll show you. Actually pretty fitting with Roush Racing winning, RFK winning today. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, you got the old Roush Racing logo on the side here. And then there's the checkered flag sports logo, licensing on that. And then the number 16 on this side. So a lot of little detail, very exciting coloring, and so forth on this. And again, a brand that you don't really see in the sport. I think Harris Liu, was doing this, logo this week with his branding and, using the Family Channel logo there. So that's what kind of reminded me of this there. I found this actually a while ago. A few months ago, but really gorgeous. This is the kind of this. If they want to do something really crazy with throwback merch, they should do something like this because that would definitely stand out there. So I'm really glad that it was in good shape there too. Because anything with, I've talked a lot on this show here about anything that has like white accents on it and how nice it looks. At the same there too. But yeah. There we go. Yep, there was a short run of AK Racing hats made with Jeff Bodine's signature before he brought on a new sponsor and changed the name of the team. That's right. I have seen that 611 Hornet. You're right. You're right to bring that up. And you know that's kind of an interesting aspect of it too, where they had to kind of unload the older merch and stuff with Kawicki's name on it and what was done with that. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of the video, but a lot of the other stories like that are going to be in there, and that's going to be, I mean, really, again, a scenario that I think is so hard to imagine, where you have the defending series champion, a self-made driver that had, run their own team, and then this happens. Then how do you respond to it? How do you keep the team operating? And what can you do? I mean, what are you not able to do? And what do you kind of figure out at the same time? And so, yeah, that's going to be definitely a big focus on it. It's a challenging story. It's certainly challenging to do the research for it for sure. But I know Brad was very interested in it as well, and he actually recommended an interview for it there. So there will likely be a follow-up to it after it gets wrapped up here too. So yeah. Let's see here. Let's see. Tracks wins on that. Do we have tracks? Tracks is the biggest category on here. I do see a few on here. Yeah, we may do that. All right. Let me try this too. I want to do this while I'm on here, and kind of again another. We'll do some tracks questions here. Let me do the first question, and while we're getting everybody's answers, I want to do something else here because I think this would be kind of fun here as well. So stay tuned here, folks. We'll start with tracks on this. Alrighty. Okay, so first question here. What year was the first Crown America 500 run at Riverside? Don't look it up. Try to guess it. Just looking for a year. What year was the first Crown America 500 run at Riverside? There we go. Made it in time for trivia. Yes, you did. Yeah, again, I apologize we didn't do the show, didn't do trivia for the Kansas thing, but as you know, as you can tell from that show, there was a lot to cover. I think I actually dozed off a little bit towards the end of the show, and I do apologize for that. I was so gassed after we got back from that. It was we were really, really fighting to get back in 2.5 days there on that, but it worked out. It worked out well, and I'm glad we got back safe and everything, especially with all the craziness that was going on there too. Let me read the question one more time here. What year in the 50s was the first Crown America 500 run at Riverside? Alrighty. So I need to get like a stick or something for this camera because I want to do something like this. But this, I'm going to try not to shake the camera too much. Let me see if I can twist it. So one thing I want to talk about. So again, I want to also mention on here, Happy Mother's Day for those who celebrate. Again, I'm not a big fan of having races on Mother's Day. I think it should be one of those things that, again, even in 1993 was kind of something that was just not done. But again, hopefully that gets reconsidered for next season. I know this year, the Olympic break, it was probably harder to move it off the date. I think Easter still kind of falls under that category too. We'll see if that happens or not, but I do think that needs to be reconsidered. But in honor of Mother's Day, I thought this would be this was something that I haven't presented on here yet. You notice this quilt here behind me. So this is a quilt my mother made here. She's still very, very talented in making these quilts here and really enjoys making them. And I've had this on the background of the show. And I'll bring the camera a little bit closer so you can, again, kind of see if you're newer to the show here. We got 65 people in here. We probably have a few people that are a little bit newer. You can see that Terry Labonte paint scheme that we had from Kyle Larson's paint scheme among those represented. A lot of these parts here that have the race cars on them were produced in 1994, so they're about 30 years old. Now, these other colored pieces here, these ones where you have like these squares and just have color patterns, that's a design called Courthouse Steps. And these were picked out with certain colors back in 2011 to represent other winners that scored wins that season. So that will be in that. Did I say in the 50s on it? Yes, I did leave that out of the question originally to make it harder. But if I read that again, then yeah, I guess that makes it a little bit easier. Yes, in the 50s is in the original question. So, yeah, that would be the first Crown America 500 at Riverside. There is the Ted Musgrave car, just like on the hat. So you can see that up there. These other ones here were with racetracks done by hand. You have Sears Point there. I believe that's Talladega at the top left, Martinsville at the top right. We got Darlington right over here. So there you go. Kind of a picture of the track with the checkered flag pattern on here. Map of South Carolina, kind of to show where the track is there too. But this is not the only quilt in the room, as a matter of fact. What we did just recently, and this is kind of our, movie theater room, the small, really more of like just an entertainment center in here. But we had some empty space to work with, so she put up some other quilts, and I'd like to show you those today. So here we have our baseball quilt on this side. You see the fireworks embroidered around it there, so a great deal. We had some rally towels we picked up from some baseball games, and that's where you kind of have these loops at the bottom. So you have like a space to put those. That's just perfect for, again, kind of a sports room on this. Oh, we have a call on Pocris. Okay, cool. We'll jump up on that. I'll finish this up here, and then we'll catch up on all of that. But you can see kind of some of the embroidery. Hopefully on this camera, it'll show better than on the other camera here now that we have this. But we have that one on this wall. And then on the facing wall, we have a couple more over here. This one is a circus-themed one here. We have like some Barnum and Bailey's graphics here in the middle. And kind of going for more of like a, like 1800s kind of design here. Again, my mother would be able to comment much more on the actual patterns used and everything there. But this one really, this is kind of near the my seat on the other side. I usually sit over in like a last row seat in the meantime. So that'll be another design there. Whoop, my mouse is acting up here. Whoop, I think I didn't turn off the touchpads. Let me get that out of the way. Dude, okay, good, it's still up. And then yes, you can see the camera's kind of moving already to the right, and there's a Hawaiian themed quilt with these little pictograms here on this one, and that's got more of the island pattern on that there too. So we always have, it's never too cold over here at Last Car headquarters, because we always have plenty of quilts, and these ones we have on display. She also has ones that she's made. She's very big into Halloween, so we have ones that like glow in the dark. We may actually have to bring that on the show at one point here too. That would be really cool. Maybe for our Halloween show or something of that nature. But yeah, it's to kind of show you some of the other decorations here and a little closer design of, the other quilts. So just in case you're kind of curious what the rest of the room looks like, I apologize for the motion blur here. We'll get this camera set back up here for you. You can see, whoop, come on, get that back adjusted. There we go. Let's tilt that back a little bit and get that back here. All righty. So I hope you enjoyed that. And again, happy Mother's Day to everyone out there as well. Let's get into we'll go ahead and cover we'll get the trivia question here in just a moment. And yes, 3 minutes ago, Bob Pockris tweeting, Cup Tech complete, no issues. Keselowski is the winner. No cars to R&D, just like at Kansas. No cars to R&D. That's a bit of an interesting development. I guess they had nothing else to bring up on that. So Keselowski, congratulations again on the victory. This means the last place finisher of the race will be Ryan Blaney. So that article will be up later tonight, so you can check that out. Ryan Blaney, first last place run of 2024. You're correct there, Michael. So thank you for mentioning that too. Yes, I did misspeak. I was trying to skip that detail of it being the 50s. I figured that'd make the question too easy. But yeah, I'll go ahead and read it in full. What year in the 50s was the first Crown America 500 run at Riverside? That is the question. And we'll go ahead and jump to the answer. The answer is 1958. 58 is the answer. Dalton Reed, yeah, I mean, I would have loved to talk to Blackie Wangren. I did understand that, yes, he did pass away last month. Their longtime owner driver, one of his cars was actually recently found. I believe the last car that he ran in 1991. One thing that was very surprising is it actually had a JD tribute decal on it, which was interesting because I didn't think that Blackie entered in any races after August 11th of that year. I thought he just did Daytona. But it's possible that, maybe ran Atlanta or something else later in the season. Okay, let me get to the next question here. Hopefully we get a bit more of a challenging one here. Here we go. Who won the inaugural NASCAR Winston Cup race in Ontario in 1971? Who won the inaugural NASCAR Winston Cup race in Ontario in 1971? That is the next one. Don't look it up because that would be very easy to look up. It's like a few of you got 58. Yep. Who was the first one? I think some of you got that even before I read the missing part of it. 68. Beast of Metal. Looks like you were the first on that one, I think. I see 68. I see 78. 57. Michael Turner, you got it. Matt James, you got it. Jude Fernandez, you got it. There we go. Alrighty. Who won the inaugural NASCAR Winston Cup race in Ontario in 1971? That's the question. What is the answer? Richard Petty, Benny Parsons, AJ Foyt, Dan Gurney, Cale, Ty Gibbs. Okay, we're going all over the place. All right, when we get to that point, we're probably pretty close to the answer. So here we go. Who won the inaugural NASCAR Winston Cup race in Ontario in 71? The answer is indeed Supertex, AJ Foyt. AJ Foyt. Oh, I hope you don't get the camera get out of focus. Okay, good. It's like we're back in focus again. All right. Yeah, Suarez's Adrian Fernandez throwback was pretty cool. That was good. AJ Foyt is correct. Yes, see, that's correct. Okay. Let's see. Next question. What short track celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1997? What short track celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1997? That is our next question. There we go. Okay. What short track celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1997? Does this mute button work? Okay, there we go. Good. Still practicing with all the functions on my soundboard here, but I think that makes it way easier. So I usually have to click on the audio input on here, and I think that's not the most efficient way to hit mute. So you have to hear me drinking water. Okay. What short track celebrated its 50th anniversary in 1997? We got guesses for all of them. Martinsville, Wilkesboro, IRP. Let's see. Did I see Richmond on here? I guess nobody guessed Richmond. Let's see if it's that. Let's see if that's the answer. The answer is Martinsville. Martinsville, indeed. Most of you got that one. Ultimate 23 Dragon. I think you were the first on that one, just ahead of Zachary Leffler and Bean Boy 89. Martinsville is indeed the correct answer. All right. Okay, next question. How steep was the original banking at Bristol? So we're talking like when it opened. So not now, not 2007, not, earlier than that. We got to go all the way back to the beginning. So how steep was the original banking at Bristol? So like when it opened. Now look it up, try to guess it. We're looking for a number. Yeah, Richmond opened in 53. There you go. That makes more sense. How steep was the original banking at Bristol is the question. Marty Smith with a good tweet here. NASCAR has such great momentum right now, and it's not fabricated. It's because the racing is just awesome. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Except for the short tracks. That needs to be fixed. But yeah, everything else, a lot of these big name events here, man, if we have a great 600, my goodness. I don't even know. Alrighty. Let's see, NASCAR Throwback Schemes 2024. Alrighty, camera out of focus. Let's try to fix that again. There we go. That's better. Thank you for the heads up. How steep was the original banking at Bristol is the question. Alrighty. There we got guesses for 18 and 69 and 20 and 36, 24. The answer is 22 degrees. 22 degrees, it says here. Did anybody get that? I don't know. 24. Got a few for 24. Got one for 20. Got two for 20. I don't think anybody got 22. There we go. 22 degrees is correct. There we go. Here, I'll hold it further away so it doesn't get out of focus again. Alrighty. No, that's too easy. Come on. Alrighty, here we go. We'll do one more question. I might do a thing where I look at the throwback schemes one more time before wrapping up the show here. And we'll do that. But yeah. So I think we did that in the last show. We'll do now we got the side-by-side screen. I think that'll be easier to do. So if you want to stick around for that, we'll do that to kind of wrap up the show here. Because I know I evaluated the throwbacks last year. It seemed like people enjoyed that. So maybe we'll do that to wrap up. So we'll do one more question here, and then we'll go from there. So the next question here, last one. is where did Tiny Lund drive to his last NASCAR Winston Cup victory? Where did Tiny Lund drive to his last NASCAR Winston Cup victory? That's the question. What is the answer? What indeed? Thoroughly enjoyed the weekend. I hope you guys did too. This has been great. I mean, especially coming off of Kansas and seeing that craziness firsthand, and now this stuff here going into Wilkesboro. I mean, really enjoyable. Really enjoyable. You're down? Okay, yeah. Okay, cool. We'll do that after this. So yeah, if you guys want to stick around, that's fine. If you just here for trivia, I totally get it. But we'll do some of that at the end of this. That'll be fun. So if you want to stick around, we'll do that, and we'll go from there, because I think I blasted through the race coverage thing a little quicker than usual. Where did Tiny Lund drive to his last NASCAR Winston Cup victory is the question. We got guesses for Daytona and Wilkesboro and Bowman Gray and Charlotte and Talladega. Everything under the sun. The answer is Hickory. Hickory is the correct answer. Hickory. Alrighty. So there you go. So there's the result on that. So I hope you enjoyed that too. We'll switch over here. Alrighty. How about we do this? Let's go ahead and jump into this. Let me get my screen reorganized. And we'll bring this over here. Let's see if we can get this to work. I might have to squish this over here, yeah. If anybody's got like a good, I'm just using J-Ski here. I think they have a list. They have a paint scheme thing on both of these. Pretty close to it. The Cup Series one does. There's a list that just has like all of them. I'll go with this one on here. If you guys have a list that has a full list of the Xfinity or Truck paint schemes or something like that, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll go into that too. But I have one for the Cup races here, so I should be able to pull that up. Alrighty, here we go. Alrighty. So kind of make that a little larger. Alrighty. So, looking at the throwbacks here, looks like it includes the regular paint scheme, so we can kind of blitz through those pretty quick. But let me bring this up here. Why is it so much taller? Hang on. There we go. That's why. Alrighty. So yeah, the Chastain paint scheme, this old Busch series deal here, this was pretty cool. This looked a lot better in the render. I like the reflective numbers and anything. Obviously not really meant to be an actual throwback paint scheme, just a throwback logo deal. I'm having less of a problem with these over the years, because I'd rather have that than just them phoning it in and not running one at all. So I think that would be a different one to work here. Who wins worst of show? I don't think that would be it. But yeah, that'd be another one there. Let's see. This paint scheme is cool. The Freightliner one. I know it's not a throwback either, but it's kind of cool. I liked it more on the old car. But yeah, obviously doesn't count as a throwback. This one here, why did they change the numbers from black to white? I think it would probably be easier to read the number there. Maybe you would get confused with a much larger Tracker Boats logo. The 1998 Winston paint scheme there, which also pretty much brought Bass Pro Shops into the sport. Famous all-star paint scheme that Earnhardt ran. Not bad, not the greatest one. Childress used to have some really good throwbacks they used, and I can't believe they couldn't think of anything to put on the 8, but it just worked out that way. Then Rodney Childers paint scheme, the late model scheme there on the 4, I thought that came out pretty well. Again, a bit more obscure, but I mean, I know that it's cool that you kind of reference other forms of racing. There was quite a bit of that this year, and of course Barry having a great run with it too, which is pretty good. I wouldn't say that would be the worst one there too. It says North Wilkesboro was the race he won his last race on. Was the thing incorrect? Let's take a look at that. We already got this up. We can pull that up too. It might have said Hickory maybe for the NASCAR Northern Tour or the that one. 5 Cup wins. It does say Wilkesboro, so I guess it was incorrect. Okay, now I got to see where the Hickory one came from. So Hickory must have been. There was that series where they trimmed down the tracks. There, Grand National East. He must have won it there. Okay, there's the confusion. So 1973, he won Hickory, and that was a Grand National East win. It wasn't a Cup win. This is that Splinter series they briefly ran, or the tracks that fell off the Cup schedule. And a lot of these guys, like Tiny Lund, are really good at them. So November 11th, 73 versus, what was the date of his last Cup win? Oh, it's 71. So yeah. So there's where the thing got it. So you're correct. Yeah, thank you for the heads up there. That's it definitely is incorrect. So it cited a Grand National East win instead of a Cup win. There you go. Hey, the thing's been wrong before, so I guess there's another one that was wrong on there too. So anybody guess Wilkesboro? You have been correct. Jude Fernandez, you were, I believe, the first one on that. Yeah. No, there you go. I'm glad I didn't put a prize on that. That would have been incorrect. Alrighty. Well, very interesting. Yeah, what was Sammy Smith's throwback to? I have no idea. I don't know. Let's see here. Well, the Terry Labonte one, absolute showstopper. I mean, what's nice about this is one of those rare schemes that looks really good, even if the numbers moved forward. You lose some of this nice line, this very pleasing pattern that goes to the A post here. And of course, you made the logo just preposterously huge over the rear tires. But really nice, though. I mean, this thing, I don't know what it looked like in person, but it seemed to show on TV really well. Crying shame that it got wrecked. One of the most famous paint schemes in the sport. This was probably the best Cup one, if not like one of the top 3 for sure. That would be the case. Now, the race-winning car, I understand, what was this? This is a rally car or something, or a touring car or something on it there. I know the Casey Atwood scheme was in the running for it. I was a little disappointed that didn't win, but you know what? The fact that it pulled off the victory, maybe that was the difference there. So, an interesting one. Not the first one I would have picked here, but features the branding very nicely, so that was a good deal on that. Corey LaJoy running one of his late model schemes, the Razzle Dazzle Premium Grapes machine. Like the font on the number, very short track style, like the racing stripe over it. Kind of looks like Herbie a little bit. Again, not the most going on in terms of the paint scheme there, but certainly the significance to the driver. We've seen that before with like Eric Jones winning in an old late model scheme. Super GT car. Thank you, Matt James. There you go. So yeah. Oh, very cool paint scheme there too. Not bad though. I mean, again, I like white as an accent. I think a car is just white. It's a little harder to market there because it'll just look like an unsponsored car. But I get the significance of it. This here, no throwback on that, so we'll just move on. This Junior scheme wasn't bad. I was never a big fan of Junior's paint schemes. I always think that the 88, I mean, you may as well just put his face on the side of the car. And much like the 9 that Elliott runs today, it's too blocky, too square. It doesn't look like a number. It doesn't have the dimension that the 8 had when Junior ran for DEI. I always wish they just changed the number font for Elliott's car to something closer to like a Melling font. I think whenever he ran a Melling font on the car, it always looked really good. But yeah, not my favorite Junior scheme. This one was pretty good. Of course, he won the 500 in it. I liked his nationwide schemes. It kind of looked like Buddy Baker's. But again, the number font, I think, still held it back. And I never liked that they had that black rear panel on it. I always thought that looked ugly, like it was burnt or taped up or something. I guess he liked the way that looked, but I never was crazy about it. Not a throwback, another overstock scheme, not a throwback there. Not one there. I like that Stuart Haas is doing a lot of these, like Sprint Car and other ones there, but they don't really translate very well into the Cup cars. Not having the full story on these here or not being able to grasp the full story. I'm not as crazy about these. It's to me, it has to be like immediately recognizable. I think that's a big element of having a great throwback scheme. I think Larson's for the Kellogg's car definitely qualifies under that. But yeah. This was cool. This, however, I thought was neat. I like that they did something creative with the sponsor. They got featured there. Mike Joy said this was his favorite. The old Trans Am paint scheme on there. The number in the circle, very kind of European kind of styling there. Although Trans Am, of course, American racing, but I liked how that looked. I thought that was pretty fun. Kind of thinking outside the box there a bit, and it ended up having a good finish too, which is pretty cool. But yeah. The Project Wyoming thing, which is actually Wisconsin, I didn't expect that to return to the track again this week. But I thought they did a nice job on the scheme there from last week. It was distinctive, but not a throwback at the same time. Fifth third scheme, you could say it's a throwback to his win at Daytona last year. Still a sharp scheme. I think this is Buescher's best. The Build Submarine scheme is right up there, but this one's probably the best. But Truex scheme, I picked him for the win because I always think whenever he runs the auto owner's car, Truex is going to be a factor for the win. Just didn't turn out that way, but yeah. But again, it's solid. It's fine. It stands out. At a glimpse, it's going to be Truex's paint scheme there, so that was pretty good. This one, I'm with Eric Estep on this one. Why did they run this just anywhere else? It's like a celebration of like 100 years of DeWalt, but I mean, like, it's not really a throwback to anything. Especially when you have a lot of strong history with the 20 and with DeWalt in the sport. They could have done anything with that, but it was kind of disappointing they did this. This I thought was clever. I liked the old numbers from the old Fords and stuff. You got Glenwood's name over the door rail here. I like the dirt accents on it there, especially at a track like Darlington where you have so much abrasiveness on the surface of the cars. I think that looks pretty cool. So that was another good one. Let's see, not Logano's. Bubba Wallace, good scheme, but not a throwback scheme. This one was cool. I know there was a lot of furor over this during the week about where this yellow line was. I agree that the initial render, where it goes over the headlights, looked stupid because it's not supposed to go that high. Obviously, the nose on this car is very different from either the car tomorrow or the smoothed out version of the car tomorrow that ran this. And there was a slightly better version of this where it went down below like the nose of the car. But kudos to several people. I know Wookie Drives was among these here that showed several other pictures of this car where that line is different from week to week. That it wasn't always in the same spot, which is pretty cool. So I liked seeing this one again. It's not the best Gordon scheme. It's definitely the top three though, because you got the orange accents. It's way better than the white car they ran at Daytona. But regardless, I think that the way this came out was okay. It would have been nice if this was a little bit lower, but I'm not going to, split hairs about that on that one. I think this one came out great. Not a throwback, but kind of an interesting scheme. I mean, Black's Tires been in the sport for a while, sponsoring different teams over the years. That one's, it's not bad. Again, driving this one without power steering ended up being kind of a factor. The old Long John Silver's logo, kind of funny. The font's a little bit interesting there. Again, just a white car, so not a lot going on there, but kind of fun with the branding though a little bit. Again, I don't mind these that aren't based on the paint schemes from the past. I don't think they're the best ones. I think that automatically disqualifies them for that conversation, but it's at least better than not running anything at all. It's at least recognizing the weekend, and this is kind of fun. I mean, it's weird. It's weird to compare it to today. I mean, this looks like a child's drawing right here. I mean, it's charming that way. It's like a kid's meal thing. It kind of gives you that kind of feel. This was cool. You run the late model scheme. It kind of transitioned pretty well here because it had a black nose on his car. The number font's a little bit weird. Again, not one of my favorites, but Todd ran really well in it, so that was pretty cool. Again, I don't think it was immediately recognizable, but when they showed the picture of it, you could tell that it was based off of that. It wasn't too much off here. I mean, I still think it's, at least at this point, the Larson one is easily the best of the Cup ones, and then the 21 is probably a close second. It's actually, I like it a lot more than I thought it would, but I thought that was pretty good. Their late model or modified scheme on this, not bad. It looks more like an orange accents here versus the red. But it came out pretty nice there. Again, Stuart Haas's throwbacks just haven't been as good the last couple of years. But I think it's just because they're chasing after a different part of history rather than NASCAR history. And I get it. That's fine. You know, you're passionate about that. You want to represent that, but I don't know. It doesn't make me jump out of my seat. This is really cool. I thought these were great. I thought, and I see it skip past John Hunter Nemechek's, but we can include it in the conversation. I love this baby blue. I mean, the penny blue, but it looks lighter. I like how the numbering is kind of weird. It's got the number on the deck lid like the cars used to have. This is really nice. And I like this little accent they did to the fenders where they blacked out the curve of the fenders to make it look like a low slung car there. That was really cool. This is nice. This is a nice integration of the sponsorship with an older scheme. This is like an older Richard Petty one. You got the Eric Jones name like right above the right at the rail here. I like this a lot. And I like the 42 also. I like this one better. I mean, if they had both those in diecast, I would grab this one first. This just looks cool. I like it. It's just weird enough and old school enough, and it's not the same thing you usually see with an STP scheme. Although I don't mind if they run that every week. Certainly the one they ran at Dover was gorgeous. This is right up there. I probably put this ahead of the 21, but behind the 5. It's definitely up there though. This one that Reddick dominated in. Again, very interesting. It's not the first go-to I would go with. It's definitely the top 5. I probably put it behind the 21. So like 4th best. It's cool with the story. Again, talking about the consolation races back then. I thought that was pretty cool. And again, the 42, I would keep it, almost tied with the 43, maybe a little bit below it. 43 is actually a bit better. It's a little bit more tied together. The 42's color scheme was a little bit off, but again, not bad. I mean, the Family Dollar scheme kind of has its own look to it. This was supposed to be Mark Martin throwback on this. Again, a little obscure there, but okay. With the number of fonts and all that. A little bit all over the place with the different products on it, but we see that with a lot of JTG schemes. It's okay. Not the first one I go to. I guess, was it Mark ran that in the Clash, I think, or the Bud Shootout. What was it, 2005? Maybe 2004. I think it was maybe 2003 even. I think it was that year. But it was okay. Not a top one, though. This was good. This was very good. I mean, obviously the number moved forward. A lot of the Bowman schemes have been off because I don't like how huge this Ally Bank logo is, because it looks like 48 Ali, and that just throws me off. Like it looks like it's trying to spell out the number or something. They've made it better by making the door number bigger, but now it's in the wrong spot because you're supposed to have this really cool pattern, the Lowe's pattern. That's kind of blurred out here on the hood too, because they made it just flat instead of that like house shape there. It's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, it's about as good as you're going to be able to make it with the current decal placement on this car, but it just kind of makes you wish they just kind of made this smaller and put the number in the right spot, closer to what Jimmy actually ran. This was cool. I like the scheme he ran at Kansas a bit better. Again, not a throwback, of course, but I mean, kind of a different one there. Not a throwback here. He gets us car. This was cool. I mean, it could have been anything with Dave Marcus. I would have been okay with Realtree or Big Apple Markets. I think the 2000 scheme is still my favorite. But, I mean, I totally get it. If you're going to go throwback, you can throw back pretty far to back at the K&K Insurance one, which, as Mike Joy brought up, is still around, which is pretty cool. But here with the Focused Health branding, could have made that a bit smaller, but obviously they'd have no need to because the number placement's so different now. Not bad. I like the little silver accents there to kind of replicate the Dodge bumpers and nose and stuff like that, even on a Chevy. The number's accurate. That looks good. Maybe not my top 5. I think if it were Realtree, with a more, a font that you recognize even more with Dave Marcus and not both Dave Marcus and Bobby Isaac, I would have liked that more. But that's kind of that. The police car was fine. Again, the number off center kind of ruins it. I think Travis Quapple's in 2008 was better. Not bad, just okay. Not a throwback to anything, but, it's fine. And the Adrian Fernandez car for Suarez. This was cool. I like the integration of the number font and the paint scheme. Translating it from an Indy car to a Cup car is difficult, just like with the ones we saw with the sprint cars and so forth. But not bad. Not bad. I mean, that would kind of be okay. Brad's in the All-Star race right now. Duke A. Chronic. Very good point. Yeah, he's in the All-Star race. We heard that hype from the Ty Gibbs crew, that was one thing they were looking forward to, trying to punch their ticket. Now they'll have to either get the fan vote or win their way in, but we'll see. But yeah, he makes it in, which is fantastic. We'll just kind of go through the Xfinity ones here. We'll just kind of pick them out. Oh, here we go, Darlington. Okay, it is by race. Perfect. Okay, we'll just stick with Jayski here. So we'll go back to the Xfinity ones here, and we'll kind of go through here. This was quite good. The old yellow freight paint scheme there, integrated it very nice with the numbers. It looked great. Last Bro thought this was a Cincinnati Bengals thing. Kind of reminiscent of what the 17 looked like there in the truck race. But, excuse me, not bad. Not bad at all. Yeah, Xfinity cars are gorgeous. Again, get the numbers in the right spot. Be able to, have a nice hood logo there with, louvers and stuff in the way. It looks great. It just looks great. This one's pretty good. I don't think it was my favorite one, but it was Bush schemes there, pretty good. This one here, kind of all over the place. I don't really get it. It's supposed to look like a cooler or something with the Arctic branding. Moving on, number 2 here for Wheeland scheme. Didn't really have a throwback. This was pretty neat. Kind of had a nice late model feel to it there with the checkered pattern on it there for Dawson Cram. That wasn't bad. Anthony Alfredo also kind of going with kind of a throwback in that sense with the flat colors. Ran well. Kind of reminded me of an old BJ McLeod car, kind of the way it looked. So the recognition of it was a little bit lost and everything there. Speaking of which, here you got Garrett Smithley, just a plain car here too, a little bit different. Why did this load? Let's reload it here. It's not showing the Garrison Holmes one, but again, that Fincham throwback was quite good. Ah, there we go. There's your race winner there with Justin Allgaier. That one came out nice. Nice. Again, you usually see like the transition from one color to the other just be a straight line. Like that's kind of distinct. Makes it look much more like the equipment truck that it was based on. That was pretty cool. Yeah, the 5 looked cool. It's not bad. It's just not immediately recognizable. But yeah. But solid job. The number font's kind of interesting. The accent off of it. Kind of it almost gives it kind of hand-drawn lettering kind of look to it. Reminiscent of kind of like Clint Boyer's like hand-painted car he had a few years ago. That wasn't bad. Yeah, don't entirely get the story with the 8. It might have just been looking like something back in the day there on Sammy Smith's car. It's not bad. Somebody mentioned in the chat here earlier, it looked kind of like Jeff Burton's car for the Busch series. I could see that. It kind of has that feel to it. It's okay. Just, that doesn't set the world on fire. But kind of like the 5 with Alfredo. Kind of do go with something simple where like the number kind of stands out a bit more. This was interesting. I liked, again, the integration of the junior paint scheme, the mayonnaise car, and kind of using the same font on the 9. I kind of liked a little bit of creativity with that to make it work. It's not too difficult to turn an 8 into a 9 there, but I think they kind of did kind of at first glance, it kind of blurs a little bit. And again, that's where I'm not crazy about the 88 font. It can look like that very easily, which is too bad. But on this one, I don't mind it. The Menards branding on there shows pretty well. Not a throwback for Josh Williams. Not really a throwback for David Starr here. This was very good. This was very, very good. Again, mentioning Bud Moore Engineering. And it's a shame that the fender got ripped off with a blown tire there, but this one came out very nice. I think it looks nice on the Dark Horse Mustang here. I like the lines on the nose here. I like that they integrated the font, kind of used that Wrangler font there on the fenders. Very big and bold numbers, very, very small driver name. If you look at close-up shots like diecast of this car, where they put it on the 82 Thunderbird, this number like drapes over the hood, or drapes over the roof rather, and the name is like crammed over in the corner because they can barely fit it on there. Very cool. This is really good. I like this actually better than 00, especially since it references a cup paint scheme. But very nice. Very nice. This one doesn't count. That one doesn't count. This one's cool. Classic Toyota Racing, like off-road coloring on here is pretty cool. I actually kind of like Sheldon Creed's Wrangler paint scheme better than that. I would have probably been okay with just running that. But not bad, though. Again, it gives you kind of an off-road, early Jimmy Johnson kind of feel to it. I think that's pretty good. 19, yeah, not really. 20, not so much. This is pretty cool. I guess it was a truck design here on this for the Bennett scheme. Not bad. Pretty simple, kind of like um, the Algeier scheme. Nice primary colors. They pop pretty well. I like these two different colored stripes here. That looks pretty nice. It kind of integrates into the number design. And then you get kind of the reverse on the roof. It's a very pleasant scheme. It's not bad. I actually like this better than his regular scheme for sure. I think it's a little better, a little nicer to look at. This swoop over the fender is quite good. There we go. There's the Fincham car and the John Hurt image. They're a great Toyota branding scheme there. That kind of red, orange, and yellow kind of transition looks nice. I like this kind of rally number looking thing on the side here. That looks very cool, very aggressive. Even without the logo on the hood, it actually kind of works out better because it doesn't get in the way of that. That's pretty hip. I like that a lot. And yeah, the Garrison Homes ones for Fincham there, integrating the Harvick scheme. I think that actually looks better than the 29 we saw at Wilkesboro last year. I think on the old car, it looks a lot better. It looks a bit closer to that. So that's not bad. These are really good. These are solid. Maybe not top favorites, but I mean, really, a good 6 or 7 out of 10 on those. These are, probably 7 to 8 actually. This one's okay. They've run it a couple times. Not head over heels about it, but it's not bad. I mean, I like the dual stripes on the hood. This blocking here around the number is pretty cool, and I like the number font. Looks like Kyle Sieg did really run one. This is probably my favorite from the Xfinity one. This picture does not do it justice either. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this is just a Wood Brothers scheme." It's like, no, 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 no. No, the red is lighter. The numbers are bigger and bolder. You got yellow accents around it. You got the black frame rail here to simulate like the wraparound rear glass of the Oldsmobile. It goes over onto the rear deck, which the Wood Brothers scheme did not do. It looks really nice. And again, kind of like an update of that Alfredo car showed on here where they did the We Care logo and using this very 80s looking font. I like how the color transitions, like like the way the light shadows off that side of the car, and that's also matches like the yellow transition to this orangish reddish color. Like it's so nice. I love it, and it's a nice white accent on there. It just looks very clean and a classic Cale Yarborough. I think of Cale Yarborough. I think of this scheme. I don't really think of like the 11 car or any of those. I like this one a lot. I like this one a lot. Blaine Perkins has had some gorgeous cars. And then you got this, the Harry Gant scheme. Can't go wrong with it. And I was skeptical of them, of course, we're having to run the 31 instead of the 33 for the branding. But this blocky number style, it looks so good. I don't know why they didn't go with this for the John Hunter Nemechek one for Wilkesboro, and they just showed that. It's just disappointing. I mean, the green's not this color. It's not dark enough. The numbers should have been blockier, and they, and use this font with the branding. If they just did that, it probably would have looked great. And again, just like the Oldsmobile one we saw with the 29, simulating the wraparound rear glass with the black bars on the back, great job. Because this Chevrolet headlight bar is much closer to look like an Oldsmobile than it looks like a Chevy, even though obviously it is a Chevy. But very nice on this one. I still like the 29 better, but the 31's right there. I like that Harry Gant signed it, and you got to see that there too. It looks like he kept it out of the wall, so that's good. Very nice, but very nice though. I mean, we haven't seen this in a while. Mike Bliss ran it where he actually had the 33. That's the only way that could look better. Obviously, with team branding being what it is, they have limits with that. But the Harry Gant car looks so good, so good. But again, yeah, this 35. Look at you better look at the pinstriping on here. Even the font matched up with the name on the roof for a Joey Gase entry. That's highly accurate. It even looks like you have like the upside down 2 making the 5, and then the 9 fashioned into a 3. The way they updated that with the branding, I think was really good. So good for them on that. This here, the Ryan Ellis Cole Trickle car, the only one I think that holds a candle to the 29. And it's close, though, because the Harry Gant one's still in the mix. But yeah, the regular Viking Motorsports entry, not a throwback there. This was cool. This was very cool. You get another good view of the 29, though, also. This one has kind of an early J-Skis render feel to it on Ryan Sieg's car. The color transition on the name. The RSS Racing logo updated to the SIAP steel. It just has Sieg's name in big bold letters here. This feels like an old ASA car, but it kind of feels like something watching on a TNN broadcast on a Sunday afternoon there. Really like it, though. That's pretty cool. Is that Euro style? That's the font? Okay, I didn't know that. Good catch. Thank you. Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's see. The Kyle Petty one. Oh, so good. So good. What's really cool, everybody's like, oh, we did the Mellow Yellow car before, and Kyle Larson had the actual branding. No, no, no. This one is actually better than that one, and I have several points to argue this. The number, this is how big the number was on that car in 1991 and 1992. In 93 to 94, they made the number smaller, and on the Kyle Larson one, they didn't use this font. They used the italicized, like modern Chip Ganassi font on it. This is the actual Sabatas font. And also the green stripe goes up higher, which is what it did in like 91, 92. I guess it stayed that way 93, 94. Really, the last couple of years they ran it. But this number was way smaller. This is like the first incarnation of that one. It looks so good. And the Young's Buildings thing integrated with the Mellow Yellow logo, really good. The Ranco deal on the side, very nice. Very nice. And the accents, the yellow accents around the headlights. This actually moves it a little bit ahead of the 29, I think, actually, the Yarborough scheme. It's that good. It's that good. It's bold and in your face. You look at shots of this for 91, 92. It had very few contingencies like this, and they kind of crammed in the corner. I like it better than the Haley Deegan one, too. I do. I put that one at least third behind the 29 and the 42 here. And the next one up here is going to be up there, too. Oh, so good. So good. Again, another one where, we've ran this before. Kurt Busch ran it. William Byron ran it. Don't care. Look at this. Look how well the classic collision branding merges into this. Look how the associate sponsors are fitted to the Chevy logo on the rear deck. Look at how all these other brands are integrated into it, like the Hendrick Motorsports logo and the Matrix Apparel logo and the Richmar Flores logo and all this are merged into like what looked like 1990s contingencies, much like the 29 does. 29 also had really good contingency integration. This puts it a level beyond. This is like right there with the 42 and right there with the 29. The Xfinity one was an embarrassment of riches. Fantastic schemes. I like this one better than the Byron one, which had the 24 on it. At least this one has kind of closer to the accurate font on it. I like it better than the Kurt Busch one, where it's just the number 1 for Phoenix Racing. This I like better, even though it doesn't have the City Chevrolet one in the strictly speaking logo, like on the one in the 24 did. But again, Matrix Apparel did a great job with the outfits. The scheme looks nice. The color gradient is nice. And again, it's enough to make me almost like it more than the Hardee's scheme again, my favorite Days of Thunder scheme. Really good. Really, really good. I can't imagine how beautiful that looked in person. I hate that he finished last. It sucks. But beautiful car, though. Here, this is cool. I can't help but notice, because I just have my head up my butt about this kind of stuff here. I don't like that it doesn't have that little extra prong on this 4. The first 4 should look just like the second 4. I guess they had a branding issue, so they couldn't do that. It's a point against it in my book. It is. It's not quite as good as this, but it's really, really good. And I'm perfectly fine with it winning the best in show for Xfinity. It's really nice. It's definitely the 97 version, 97 into 98. It's not the 99 version with darker purple. It's a lighter blue one that everybody seemed to like. It has like even the replacement for the STP logo here. I love that they had the best inlet cover there, where it had the little loop-de-loop track with the diecast in it. That was amazing. Alpha Prime really steps up their throwback scheme every year. I loved when they ran the 10-10-3-4-5 car a couple years ago. This one's really good, though. It's really good. I like this one better, though, and I like that one, I think, a little better than this, although it's so close. And then the 29 is like right in there too. Hard to pick a first. I can't pick a 1. If these were diecast, I'd grab them all. I would. This one's fine. Trans Am scheme. Scott Borchetta. Car ran good. I'm happy for Klingerman. Not my favorite one. Not the worst one either. There's other ones that aren't quite as good, but that's the other thing too. Yeah. No, the Kyle Petty Mellow Yellow one is so good. So good. This was good. I liked it with the gold rims, the Robert Presley Alliance throwback, another car that had bad luck in the race, unfortunately. But it looked good. It looked really good. I hated that Clemens struggled. I usually don't go for Busch Series paint schemes, but that was really good. This one, middle of the road. If I'm going to put something towards the bottom, it would probably be this. It's okay. It's fine. The 88 scheme, not really a throwback. It's got a part-time schedule, that car. Not a throwback here for Weatherman, but again, kudos to his family on that. Circle B diecast paint schemes are usually pretty good. This kind of slate gray with the blue. Not really a throwback either, but good to see Balicki back out there. This was nice. Again, never thought this would be a throwback, but this came out really well, and it fits the driver so well. A lot of fun, and it ran great too, so that was good. This is okay. Throwback logo, fine. Not anything to really write home about on that. Let's get into the Truck Series scheme. So yeah, again, if I had to pick one, I don't want to just pick one. I would probably pick the Mellow Yellow car because it's just so good. I mean, this just looks like a diecast right here. That big number, that 91 to 92 number. If you look at pictures of it, when Kyle won the pole in 93, they made the number a little smaller. The body templates were different. The green would have been higher, which is cool. That looked fine. It's such a standard, and it's way better. It's better than the Larson one. I know you're not going to believe me, but even with the accents around the headlights, it's better than the Larson one. It really is. And the more you look at it, you'll see it my way there. This is like probably tied for second with the 29 car. I love both of them. The 29 is so good. Look at these logos, the Coke logo and everything. All of these matched up there. RSS did a fine job on that. Love it. I hope it gets made. It sounds like it's not. I didn't see that on the website, but it should get made. It's beautiful. It needs to be out there. It needs to be seen. It needs to be cherished. It needs to be protected. Yeah. So good. So good. Yeah, look at that. Oh, this part right here. I have a 64th of it somewhere. I should have brought it out for the show, but it's a really good scheme. Yeah, those aren't bad either. And again, I'm really liking this Austin Hill one more. Like, that's really good too. Let's get to the Truck Series ones. Do we have the Truck Series paint schemes? I guess we didn't do that here. Let's do the main trucks. Darlington. Here we go. All right, here we go. We don't have Purdy or Holmes. Holmes had a good throwback. The Donnie Allison one there, that was pretty good. Not really a throwback here. The night shots are really nice. That's a beautiful shot there. Who did this? Is this Getty Images? Tricon Garage. Okay, I guess they had their own photographer. That's a good shot. Very nice. That'd be good wallpaper. Not a throwback. Not a throwback either. This is fine. The Drive for Diversity deal. I guess did Bubba Wallace run this scheme? I thought he did. But kind of cool promotion. Not a great paint scheme. Kind of a short track looking number. Looked okay. Not really a problem. Dean Thompson's here. It's okay. I'm not as familiar with the story. Doesn't immediately jump out at me. But, again, kind of interesting to see the Thompson Pipe Group, not with the black and blue. I think it looks better than this reddish or greenish colored here. But it's okay. Kyle Busch's wasn't a throwback, and it's amazing he got a shot of this before it wrecked. Actually, this looks like it's after it wrecked the first time. The nose looks all screwed up here. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting shot, actually. Body lines just look off on it. But not really a throwback either. Surprised they didn't do a throwback on the 9 truck, but this is a blue chip paint scheme. Nice paint scheme. The Cale Yarborough one on this was really cool. Corey Heim did a good job with it. Unfortunately got that big wreck. This one's pretty good, though. I like the pinstriping. Kind of similar to the Tyler Reddick in the Cup one. Oh, Bubba Larson and the Fuel is right. Okay, they did run variations of it. Okay, I didn't know if that was intentional. But that would be good. Yeah, this one's not bad. I remember, this one reminds me more of Earl Ross than of Yarborough. But it's not bad. I mean, the striping is cool. You don't really see that anymore. And I think on a nice tall body like this, you can actually see it a little better. Number font's fine. It's okay. Not a throwback. This one was like, what, a drag racing paint scheme? I thought that was a little thinking outside the box. I like this better than the sprint car ones. It stands out a little better. It just looks like a nice regular scheme. I think you could just run this one for the Dead On Tools scheme. It was okay. I thought it was fine. This was cool. I still think it's a Chuck Bound scheme. Obviously, that Hensley team had several people drive for him. This looked really cool. I like this actually a little better than the Leffler or the 00 in the Xfinity race. I think this one was cooler. It has more black on it than the orange, but I think this orange probably popped more. The thing with the yellow trucking cars, they always looked a little bit dull, and they didn't have the yellow, I get it's part of the branding, I didn't like it as much as like when the Kodak cars ran the butterscotch paint schemes. I always think those were better. This one's not bad though. I like this one a lot. This one really, it's aggressive. It just looks cool. The number font looks nice. Um, yeah, it's just good. It's just solid. Probably top one so far for the Truck Series ones. Yeah, probably more than the 11. Yeah, and these don't count yet. Yeah, probably top one so far as we're going down this list. Yep. Oh, now it's second place. This one is good. I like that he brought the glasses out. Were there ever any pictures of Tyler Ankrum wearing the glasses? I don't know if that came out, but hopefully it did. This was really nice. I know BJ McLeod ran it. That was fine. That was cool on a cup car. It was on the right spot. But now we had actually with the 18. I never understood why Kyle Busch never ran this. I don't know why it took Tyler Ankrum to do it. Ankrum kind of looks like Russ Wheeler, so I guess that's pretty cool. He's got the hair and all that. This looked nice. And it's kind of that honey color. It's not yellow and blue. They kind of went for that darker, that honey color, but it's hard to replicate the neon aspect of it there. I think they did a pretty good job of it, though. It looks nice. It looks very nice. So, yeah, top one. This is probably a good second place right now. This Brownie King scheme, doing a more old school scheme for Eckes. I thought that was pretty cool. Reminds me of those cars from Michigan with the fins on them. So this one came out pretty well. So kudos to him on that. This was cool. This one came in the last second here. I didn't even realize they were running this, but I love these huge, huge short track numbers right in the middle of the door here. They did something kind of clever with the name here, Mason Maggio here. It looks nice. I like it. I can't quite put my finger on why, but it just looks like, I think it just looks like something at a local short track there, which is probably more or less kind of the intent there. So they did a good job. Had a solid finish, maybe not spectacular. Yeah, not really a throwback on that one. This was cool. A little bit, again, kind of busy with the green flames. Kind of reminds me of Norm Benning's Sobe cars here. But the green and black is cool. I like that accent. I always like that kind of color pairing, whether it's the Juncos cars at IndyCar or the Stake F1 cars at F1. This is a little bit duller of a green than that, but it still looks nice. I like his teammates better. I like the 22 better. This looks cool. Yeah, it looks old. I think that's a good point. 57 Chevy for the 19. Okay, thank you. Excuse me. But yeah, this was nice. Excuse me. Good integration of the sponsors. Excuse me. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, sorry about that. I thought I had that muted on the other one. Okay, we're back. We're back. Let me go back up to here. Where was I? I think I left off on the 38. This one's pretty good. I like it. It's not a bad paint scheme on there. Again, I like that his father ran it. I thought that's a pretty cool paint scheme on that. It's actually a Truck Series throwback. Exactly. Very good point on that. Thank you for a heads up there. I apologize for that, folks. We'll go back through the ones I was muted on here. And yeah, the Xfinity Communications integrating with the RC logo, really clever. I like that. Again, I usually recognize that more as Stacy Compton's truck than I do Scott Riggs' truck. This one here is okay. The black nose with the busy paint scheme behind it kind of has that late model look. That's pretty cool. It's not bad. It's not my top favorite. It's different. It's a different color scheme we're used to seeing than we see on Curry's truck. But it's okay. Even with the white base, I'm not as crazy about it. Not really a throwback here. Okay, I was just starting to wax poetic about this one. I like this one better than the 18. I was debating about this all weekend. I like this better than the Russ Wheeler paint scheme. Thank you for the super chat, Joe Schneiderman, there for that. I appreciate the super chat on that as well. Again, beautiful scheme. If they make a shirt out of this, I'd pick it up. It looks really nice. There's other versions of this scheme. There's so many of them. There's one where it's light blue and has a pink stripe right around the middle. We saw Clint Boyer run that at Darlington, I believe in 2020 or 2021. That one's pretty good. It has the big 42 like we saw in the Mellow Yellow car. And it's a nice paint scheme. There's another one that's more obscure than this one where it has a blocky, there's like a pink part here and then like a pink part over here where the sponsor is. And the rest of it's purple and the numbers are white. That one's pretty good. It doesn't get shown that often. It doesn't get a lot of love. I'd like to see that one done, but I like this one more. I like these aggressive stripes in different colors. We've seen a lot of stripes in these paint schemes here, like we saw with Reddick's paint scheme, for example, or Corey Himes that we saw earlier in this list here. But this just screams late 80s, early 90s to me. These different colored stripes here with a bold pink number on the top here and this dark outline here for the sponsor. It's so good. It's so good. Love it. Absolutely love this scheme. Daniel Dye seems to churn out merch of just about everything. So I'm hopeful something becomes of this. That would be great. That would be great. I would jump on that in a second. I do like this more than the 18, I will say. I like it more than 19, even though that one's really good. This is so good. I was so excited to see this one. The race winner, fine. Not a throwback. It's okay. This was pretty good. I know some of you expected me to be really head over heels on this. It's okay. Doing the silver and the blue thing, it seemed to pop really well in the sun, especially in practice there. That's pretty cool. Again, the 96 Pontiac, I'm not a big fan of it compared to the early 90s Pontiacs. So a throwback to that is not going to be as high in my books here. It's kind of like the difference between the 95 and the 96 MBNA paint schemes. I like the older one better. This one's not bad, though. It's cool. It's got the little fracturing here of the stripe. On Hamilton's, it kind of goes up here, but you wouldn't really be able to see that very well on a truck. So I see why they kind of changed that up. It's okay. It's not bad. It's maybe not my favorite Faction 46 scheme, but it's good. It's good. It's good, but it's not my favorite. It's definitely not my favorite. I like that 43 is just in another league. Oh, it's so good. Oh, it's so good. So good. So good. This is cool. I didn't recognize this as Jimmy's right away. I recognized this as Casey Mears because it kind of reminded me of the 25 that he ran there. But obviously, yeah, with more of the stars and stripes thing, it's more the Jimmy thing. That's fine. It's okay. It's not my top favorite. It's almost too new to be a throwback, but I get it. This is interesting. I like this little zigzag pattern. Not a throwback scheme, but kind of a fun little design here on Timmy Hill's truck. So give him a shout out for that. Not a throwback on the 66. Not a throwback on the 71. This was cool. This number, this simple straight up and down number really kind of evoked that Buck Baker paint scheme from that car that's always parked in the infield at Darlington. This was cool. Again, not a top favorite, but I like the number styling. I like the block lettering. It kind of has an older feel to it. Not a throwback. I'm over the meme of them saying that this is their throwback every year, but they got other things they could use. I mean, come on. This was cool. I liked that it had the accurate number. And again, the Jocko Flacco thing that Dawson Cram did in 2020. I liked Cram's version better, even though this is the accurate number on it. I don't know what it was. I thought that looked really, I think he had like silver rims on it too. Cram's version looked really good. So that was cool. This isn't bad though. I like that it has the accurate numbers and the branding merges into it fine. But some reason I like Cram's better, even though it's a little bit less accurate. Not a throwback here for Majeski. Not one for Ben Rhodes either. But yeah, so really top to bottom. I don't know what the worst would be. Probably the worst would be any of the regular schemes really with these. Favorite truck one has got to be this 43, the peak paint scheme. Favorite one of the Xfinity one is probably the Mellow Yellow one, just ahead of the Cole Trickle car. And favorite one on the Cup Series side. Where we look at that again? Not that. Yeah, probably the Terry Labonte. Yeah, that's really hard to beat. That's really, really hard to beat. Let me look at the rest here. No. 24 is pretty good. 48 is pretty good. See, they're all pretty good. Oh, the 43, though. Oh. You know what? Yeah. Oh, boy. Can I pick it over the Terry Labonte one, though? It's close. This is a really close second. And I'd probably put John Hunter's third in the Cup ones. So, yeah, I'd say the Terry Labonte one for Cup would be the best one in the Cup one. Best one in trucks is the 43, the peak car. The best one in Xfinity is the Mellow Yellow one. What's the best of those three? Maybe the peak one. Maybe Daniel Dye. I might give him the W here. This one's really close, though. This one's really close. If I could pick two of each, yeah, it'd be an easier battle. I'd pick this one as my second Cup one. I'd pick the 29 Yarborough one. The Blaine Perkins car is my second Xfinity. And I pick the Russ Wheeler one as my second truck. Yeah, those would be good. So great paint schemes. Glad that we had a lot of really, really good ones. So I really enjoyed that. So, yeah, hope you enjoyed the kind of the look through it here. I do apologize. My allergy medicine is wearing out, so I am going to wrap up the show here. So let's get back to the main screen. Alrighty. Well, that will do it for the show here. I hope you guys have all enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun here on the show here, looking at the throwback paint schemes. Again, congratulations to Brad Keselowski on a tremendous win today at Darlington, breaking his 110 race losing streak. Congratulations to our other winners from the Xfinity race with Justin Allgaier and the Truck Series race that I drew a blank on. It wasn't Corey Hine. I was about to say Corey Hine, but I know he wrecked. That was oh goodness, why am I drawing a blank on that? I have the results right here. Almost said Tiny Lund. That's not that. Okay. Where is it? Oh, Chastain. Of course. Sorry. Chastain. Exactly. So again, tremendous weekend there. Had some interesting last place history along the way there. I hope you guys enjoyed following that as well. So we got the article on Ryan Blaney coming later tonight for the Cup Series article. The Xfinity and Truck Series ones are already up there. In the meantime, excuse me. So in the meantime, the website is LastCarOnInfo. The Twitter feed is at LastCarOnBrock. If you're interested in bonus content, patreon.com/LastCarOnBrock is the Patreon. Our next show will be, I believe, next Sunday, right? Because there's going to be the Truck Series race at North Wilkesboro. And then we're going to have the All-Star Open in the main event there. Should be exciting. We'll talk about the action and how well the track handles with the new pavement and the new tires. And we will find out. So in the meantime, have a great week, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you all next time.